Upgrades.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here full swing to talk about the DCEU moving into the new DCU. I'm just going to say it and preface it like this. We're going to be talking about anything and everything that's coming. We're going to be talking spoilers if you haven't seen The Flash or any DC movie that's come out since The Flash. So prepare yourself for what we're going to talk about. This is going to be open line of discussion, so we will be going into the comments in the chat. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and bring our lineup here. First up, we've got Keaton 7. What's going on, brother?
How are y'all doing tonight? Apparently, we're talking about DC. I went ahead and made myself a drink. I didn't realize we were talking about The Flash, but I mean, if y'all like Windows 98 graphics, we're going to talk about The Flash.
Ooh, here we go. Next on deck, we have Jorge. What's going on, brother?
What's up, everybody? Just hanging out, chilling, and excited for the show. This will be a fun one to discuss for sure.
And last but not least, Lucas has returned.
If we were talking Windows 98 graphics, this would be JVS with Ant-Man and Quantumanium, or Ant-Man versus Windows 7, or was it Ant-Man versus Macintosh 85? I'm kind of confused on those graphics and where those came from. But I wouldn't say that's The Flash though.
I don't know. That scene with the babies, man. When they put that in there, I was
I hope
the rest of the movie ain't like this, because this is horrible. This is terrible.
It was a very interesting choice to go with that scene. That scene looked like, if y'all remember the Harry Potter movies when he was on the broomsticks,
yes,
and he was flying on them, and
yes,
that's what it looked like. And I said,
yes,
but why? I understood you couldn't.
Hey, what's up, Chris? How you doing,
babies? Man? You couldn't put real babies in peril. I fully understood that, but I was wishing they would have. If they would have put real babies in peril.
I could not believe that they were like, let's put a baby in a microwave. Let's do this joke for the 8th graders.
Hey, that's all. But you know what? The little stuff like that still didn't spoil the point that, I mean, if it wasn't for a certain Spider-Person movie, I think The Flash, Warner Brothers made the biggest mistake in the world. But I think everybody made that mistake.
Honestly, the movies are oversaturated right now, because you got Fast X, Spider-Man, Guardians, Flash,
Transformers.
I forgot that movie came out.
What's the Disney one? Elemental.
The Blackening at the same time.
Yeah,
look. Everybody who's been clowning WB because they're like, man, look at The Flash, and I'm like, Elemental costs more money, more marketing, and currently has made not close to what The Flash has made. If you want to talk about and this is not to compare them all, but I mean, Little Mermaid's about to lose money. Elemental's going to lose money. Mm-hmm. And I would like someone to raise a hand of anyone who thinks Indiana Jones is not about to lose a hell of a lot of money.
Let me tell you, when I watched the Indiana Jones trailer, bro, I was sounding like Dylan Brooks. I was like, I don't care, he's old. I was like straight up, I did not even
They de-aged Harrison Ford to a 60-year-old, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not the way this works.
Straight to the mic. I don't care. He's old.
I don't. Again,
Harrison Ford's
I
best
think
thing
that's-
he's done is shrinking. That's like at this age, shrinking's the best thing that Harrison Ford has done. If y'all haven't watched Shrinking yet, go to Apple TV, watch that. That's the best thing Harrison Ford has ever done. Period. I'm calling it right here.
It's him embracing getting older.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
The last movie I've watched with Harrison Ford and thought this was good was What Lies Beneath. Do you know how long ago that was?
Jeez.
And-
Yeah.
Man, that was a minute.
Yeah, like that was almost 20 years ago.
I was gonna say The Fugitive.
Oh damn!
That was such a good movie.
Yeah. I didn't kill my wife. I don't care. That's me with Indiana Jones. What, 6, 5? I don't.
He was
care.
old in Indiana Jones 4,
bro,
and they made a 5th one.
Right?
Like that should tell you something. He was old as hell in Crystal Skull, and Disney said, "What we're gonna do? We're gonna make a 5th one." And everybody was like, "We didn't ask for this. No one asked for this. Unless you're gonna recast Indy, which should have happened.
Yeah.
Like no one asked for this." But I digress. I'm just pointing out the fact that online people. I swear, I've seen so many people say, "Man, I can't believe." I've seen stuff that said Warner Bros. Is going to shut down because of the Flash, and I said, "Oh, okay." So there's a bunch of stupid people out there. So I said, "Okay, we need to have a conversation about exactly what they're doing because I think people are missing the point of it." And that's why we're here.
Yeah, we're here to break out all of this and what it means. I mean, well, I guess I'll preface it like this. At the end of the day, after the Flash movie has now been completed, did any of you guys think that they were going to lead into what the DCEU is going to be? Or did you guys think, okay, after this movie from the Blue Beetle moving forward, this is what we're going to get from whatever James Gunn is kind of interpreting for what he wants to realize for the new DCU? I was curious y'all's perspective before we go into this because there's been certain things that he said recently. I'll let Lucas kind of lead that charge.
Okay.
That I want us to kind of target. The pinpointed things I'm going to say, if you look at CW, if you look at what's happened with Max, if you look at what's going on now and what's lined up, it's going to be very fascinating, this discussion. This is the reason why we want to have this discussion from just an awareness standpoint. But again, so after when you watch the Flash, before you watch the Flash, at the end of the Flash, did you think that this was going to lead us into what the DCU was going to be, or do you think that was it? That was the end of the DCEU as we know it, and then they're just going to do something brand new moving forward? I was curious from y'all's perspective.
Who's going to go first? Do I need to go first? Or?
I'll go first on this one.
Okay.
There you go.
I was fully expecting there to be a new Batman in this. Somehow, within the Flash, he would have died or gotten lost in time, and we would have gotten a whole new team, and then that would have led the whole new charge. The only thing that was always weird was the release of all these movies, because you had Aquaman still coming out when they made it very clear that DCEU was done. Like anything pre that, all those characters were just about done except for Jason Momoa. So for me, I think that was a big loss on their part, because if they would have introduced a new Batman, new Wonder Woman, new Superman, that would have made this so much better. And especially with the way that, I mean, for a lot of you guys, you didn't have to deal with this movie twice like we did, because the first time we saw it, we only saw it and they cut off the last 10 minutes. So we literally had to go.
You didn't even know about George Clooney.
Yeah, we literally had to go again to watch the movie again just to see those final 10 minutes and like the after credit scenes. So I think that part alone, like they were hyping it up so much. And yeah, like seeing George Clooney, cool, funny, haha. But I think it was just a missed opportunity that they had there. And I know that there were tons of reshoots that they ended up doing kind of last minute. Because, and I think Sam, I was talking with you earlier about this. What it was supposed to be Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, like basically like the true Justice League team coming out at the very end, which would have been dope. But I think this was a huge drop. But I was expecting it to be good, and here we go.
just to kind of harping with that, one of the things that they did show originally, they were going to have Michael Keaton be the progressive Batman moving forward. And so one of the endings was Michael Keaton and Sasha's Supergirl being at the end of it. Like, it's like, okay, they are the new progressive team, and that's what was going to lead into Batgirl. Michael Keaton was supposed to be in Batgirl. And then there was another one where it had them two as well, but it also had Ben Affleck, and I think it had Henry Cavill as Clark Kent for a little bit, but then he got nixed out of it. And then I don't know about the Gal Gadot situation, but yeah, there was another scene shot with that. I can't remember, Lucas, you may keep me honest. When did they shoot the George Clooney one? Because some people have said that they did this last minute. When was
after April? After April.
Wow.
They shot that.
Wow.
Yes. And there's a reason why. But Keenan, did you think before I speak? Because if I speak, it's gonna taint everything you're thinking, possibly.
All right. So here's the thing. At the end of the Flash, like I heard there was a post-credit scene. After the way that movie ended and that post-credit scene, I expected nothing. Like I wasn't. If they had told me at the end of that movie, this is the end of DC for now, I would have been like, I get it. That makes sense. Because the thing is, honestly, like that ending scene for the Flash was trolltastic. I cannot believe they talked Gal Gadot into coming back just for that. But like, there were two things that I liked in that movie. And honestly, I already forgot the first one. Wait, no. There we go. Michael Keaton Batman. The kid in me, I was just ecstatic to see Michael Keaton Batman back. The second thing that I liked and really appreciated was the comic book Supergirl with a temper problem. Like, I really did like the fact that they did like a Supergirl that is actually in like super duper angry and wants smoke with everybody. I was really, really happy to see that. There were so many different things in the Flash movie that I wanted to see. I knew going in, I was like, I haven't heard anything about a casting for Reverse Flash, so I already know that that's going to be something that disappoint. I never even saw Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I saw that cast walk out at Comic-Con, and I was like, oh, cool, Lucy Liu, and that was it. Like, that was where that was where that stopped. It was never one of those things like, oh man, like when they chose like one of the lamest Eminem songs for the trailer, I was like, yeah, this movie gonna be whack, but whatever. I'll be honest, I never even gave Shazam Fury of the Gods a chance. I didn't, and that's horrible because as like a movie critic and a reviewer, I should at least watch everything. But then like right before it dropped, like I think that was when Zachary Levi started coming out talking about how much he loved Jordan Peterson and all that stuff. And I was like, the movie was already going to be trash, and now you just made it worse. Like, and so, yeah, I never even saw Fury of the Gods, but like, I also never heard anything at all that was good about it. But the Flash,
Sam and Jorge's review was positive.
Okay, I'll all right. I'm sorry, Jorge.
I've never seen the movie either, Keaton. You're not the only one. I've never seen this movie.
Sorry, no, but
Jorge, wait, about Shazam?
I should have at least.
Lucas putting words in my. I never.
Wait, you talking about the Flash? Or you talking about Shazam?
Shazam.
If you're talking about the.
Oh yeah, no. I did not see. Do not put my name with that.
It must be Sam. It must be Sam.
No, you know what? I'm gonna keep my mouth shut.
No, but yeah, I didn't even. Yeah, so yeah, I didn't see Shazam. I did watch The Flash. There were like, I never quite made it back after all the horrible CGI in that baby catching scene.
Yeah, Sinbad was supposed to be in it.
Wait, what? In what?
In Shazam.
Sinbad.
Yeah.
Like,
Shazam.
Sinbad was supposed to be in.
Wait, Sinbad's still alive?
Wow, Jorge.
I'm done.
Damn
I'm
it,
done. I'm done tonight.
Okay, at this point, I really do think it's true that Wacko, Yakko, and Dot live inside the WB water tower and they're just sabotaging everything. Like at this point, that is the most believable thing to me. Like,
Well,
at this
Wacko,
point,
Yakko, and Dot would be
yeah,
Peter,
Animaniacs.
James, and David. Because is it my turn now? Is it my turn? I can't wait.
I'll say, well, one more thing. Honestly, I think they're at a point where it's like Whoopi Goldberg with the Henry Cavill thing. It's like, until you do right by me, like I think they're in trouble. I think they're just in trouble. They gotta right the ship. They gotta do something right. Like this, because they curse until you do right by me.
I got you here. First, Keaton, Gal Gadot recently did an article in Variety and Hollywood Reporter, both saying that they are discussions with her returning as Wonder Woman, currently having with James. So it's a good chance.
I'm fine with her as Wonder Woman. She will come back as Wonder
Woman. For anybody who thought that there was going to be anything continuing from The Flash, James gave a podcast interview a week before The Flash dropped and told the entire world the first character from the DCU is Blue Beetle. Yep. The first film from the DCU is Superman Legacy. So that told you up front, Flash, any character in The Flash, any character in Aquaman is not continuing in the DCU. He said it without saying it to people by telling people, oh no, my first character for my universe is Blue Beetle. And the reason why is because when Blue Beetle was shot, it was shot with no remnants of anything to do with Zack Snyder's universe. They were very careful to make sure they did not include anything in that universe in Blue Beetle. That's why Blue Beetle is the official first character of the DCU, and it's not Flash. Also, anyone who understands the release pattern of these films know that The Flash was supposed to be, I think, the last movie released, not the first. So that should have told you, Warner Brothers does not care about any of these movies coming out. For anyone who's thinking they're losing money off of these movies, those things were written off 2 years ago. Like, those budgets were already approved. David could care less about these movies. And I think that was the treatment of The Flash. That's why Andy got Batman Brave and the Bold, because someone saw The Flash and said, oh, if we gave you the proper budget, I think you can do a movie with no issue. Plus, Andy's already trapped in the Warner Bros. Universe because he directed for them the highest grossing horror movie of all time, which was It. So he's already in the Warner Brothers universe. That's why they gave him Batman. When it came to The Flash, for people that don't know, Flash budget is only $190 million. That sounds ridiculous in today's time frame.
None of it went to that baby scene.
When you get an Ant-Man with a $250 million budget, when you get a Guardians with a $250 million budget, because to properly do everything he would have needed done, they would have needed to improve the budget. What Warner Brothers did was say, you will finish this movie and we will close out the Snyderverse completely, because that's our goal. We need to close this shit out so people can stop asking us, are we going to continue this? David has let it be known he did not like the decision that the prior management made of releasing that Snyder cut shit, because if it was up to them, that would have never came out, because that conflated what this universe was going to be. So when you saw James make these decisions early on and telling people who was going to return and who wasn't going to return, that was always the plan from the beginning. It was just that they were under, and I'm going to call it bad leadership, and then got under David, who was strictly about cost cutting, and not cost cutting budgets, but cost cutting unnecessary projects. But with The Flash already done, they weren't going to just toss that movie away. With Aquaman 2 being already done, they're not just going to toss that movie away. I think it's
Batgirl.
No, Batgirl wasn't done though. And here's the thing: Flash, $190 million. Batgirl's total budget was $90 million. Because Batgirl was done in the same year that the takeover happened, they were able to write off that complete budget as a tax break. That's why they got rid of Batgirl. That's why they got rid of that Scooby-Doo movie, because those were movies they could write off as a tax break. They treated the
Capitalism
Flash,
wild as hell.
they treated the Flash the exact same way they treated Evil Dead Rise, in the exact same way they treated the House Party movie, which was put it out and see what it gets. Like it was Deadline who reported that Flash's marketing budget was under $80 million. For a film of this size, there's no way your marketing budget should be that low. So instead of doing traditional marketing, what they did was fan screenings. That's why there were so many screenings, because they wanted people's word of mouth to push the movie, because they said, we're not spending our money to push this movie. That's how they went about it. That's why they put it in the hands of celebrities and had them watch it. And then miraculously, you get a Stephen King review of The Flash before The Flash drops. Who the fuck is going to Stephen King for a review of a movie and thinking, oh my God, Stephen King likes it, so I must go see this movie? They did guerrilla marketing for The Flash because they wanted to keep everything low, because these movies don't matter to WB. I hate to tell everybody that. If you're confused about it, just look at the way they're being released. That should tell you. There was no marketing of Shazam 2 before it was released. None. I didn't even know the fucking movie was coming out and it dropped. Really and I said, oh, like that why is this coming out and no one knows about it? Because it didn't care. But you know what it did do? It's doing good numbers for them on Max. That's all they care about. This shit is content. I hate to tell people that. If people are not seeing it, that's exactly what this is. It's strictly content for them. It's content that eventually they can license off, because if you thought that deal with Netflix was something that was just thrown out the blue, it wasn't. This is how you make a company profitable, is you give them product and say, hey, what happened if we was just to lease you the entire Snyderverse? And you could show it at your free will. How many people will grab onto it? It's a lot of people. But Flash has to come out for that to happen. Shazam 2 has to come out for that to happen. Black Adam has to come out for that to happen. Aquaman 2 has to come out for that to happen. And then James gets to reset everything to the way he wants it to be. But that podcast, and that's the key part, the podcast he gave before Flash dropped ruined this movie for people when he said the first character for the DCU will be Blue Beetle. Everyone knew Blue Beetle was not showing up in that Flash movie.
Right.
But for him to say it, it told you no one from that Flash movie was continuing.
Right.
No one.
So I'm not going to see Nicolas
2.
Cage again. Is that what you're telling me?
No.
You will not see CGI Nicolas Cage again, sir.
You will not.
Not at all. But again, this is also again why Andy got Batman Brave and the Bold, because they felt bad of saying, hey, you did this Flash movie. We understand that at the time it would have required the reshoots, which would have increased the budget. Normally we would give you this. We're not going to give you this. And the reason we're not going to give you this, because we don't care. This shit needs to end, and end now. That's the way James has gone about this, and not James only, because I know people want to blame James Gunn for it. It's a guy who they announced with James Gunn as his partner, who's way more the person that's in control of what's happening with DCU. Yeah. And that's Peter, the guy who created the Conjuring universe. He is very strict on how everything should be presented. But they also understand you don't just throw away completed films. You release it, let it happen, and see what we can get out of it. So when The Flash came to an end with George Clooney, I think we were in the movie theaters, and I said, oh, this couldn't possibly continue. Right. Like there's no way in hell George Clooney is gonna continue as their Batman. I think they said, give them a funny moment at the end of this movie and end it, because we don't care. But it's hard to tell people we don't care.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and it's funny that they've just like spent all this money on basically a scrimmage, right? Like, but at the same time, like, yeah, I do get what you're saying. Like, if a movie is already done, yeah, just release it, flip a coin, see if we make any of our money back. If so, we also already got it back on taxes, which is wild as hell to me.
But about what he said with Batgirl, because again, that was also a key part. Again, they drop hints of stuff, and you just got to pay attention to it. He said, it would take us another $40 to $50 million to complete Batgirl
Yep.
to make it a reasonable movie. We're not throwing that money into this movie. We're just going to write it off. That's the only reason Batgirl was written off. If Batgirl at 90 million would have looked good, but remember, it was made as an HBO Max movie.
Exclusively
This
for
thing
HBO
is,
Max.
there's
Yeah.
no way in hell you should be spending that much money
Yeah.
on a product that's only going on a service that you're not going to make any returns on.
Right.
If you do that, you become Marvel and their TV shows. And that's what Bob came in and said, oh, we're stopping all of this. It makes no sense for us to do this. We're losing money doing it. So in a time where studios are looking to cost cut, they're not going to spend money on streaming anything of this nature. They're going to cut that shit and cut their loss. But when it becomes these films that's already completed, you put that shit out there and you see what happens. Flash may end up making $350 million. Guess what that means? I can count that towards his budget. And then once we license the rest of it, we'll still get a profit off of it. It just won't be a profit out of theater box office, but overall, we'll still push it to profit. That's been the key mark of all these. And it's not just Warner Brothers. Sony does it. Disney does it. Universal does it. Because if you think that Universal is happy that the Fast and Furious 10 is at 700 million, where it cost $350 million to make that movie, you absolutely crazy. That's why they dropped it on VOD so early, because you can recoup money faster by doing that.
Yeah.
It's again, you got to understand the way the streaming game is going now. Netflix ain't bailing people out anymore. Netflix can't afford to bail people out. Instead, they decided to tell you niggas you can't share your service no more. They're damn sure about to bail people out.
You can't
here.
say that, Lucas. You're gonna get kicked off, man. Come on, man.
We know the truth here.
It ain't Juneteenth no
But
more. You can't just say that.
It's just the way things are adapting. Paramount came out and said recently that they're going to do the exact same thing that people were trying to clown Warner Brothers for doing, which was licensing their stuff to other people. The smartest studio has been Sony, who said from the beginning, we're not opening up a streaming service. We're just going to license everything we have to everyone else. We're going to become your ammunition to destroy people. So Netflix paid Sony $1.5 billion for an opportunity to show their stuff for 18 months. Disney turned around and paid them $1.3 billion to show it 2 years after Netflix.
I've been saying it the whole time. Sony has been playing the game smooth as hell. They've been finessing the hell out of everybody, and everybo's like, "Oh, Sony this, Sony that," and they're
for
like,
everybody who don't know no better, Morbius made a profit. That should tell you something.
It's insane.
Morbius made a profit.
I'm telling you, they're just keeping. They're making these movies just to keep them in their IP. They're like, you know what? We're gonna do a Craven movie. Now Disney gonna have to pay us if they want to use it.
That's exactly why these films are coming out from DC. I'll be damned. They can be bad. They can be failures at the box office. But when I license the stuff from DC, all of these films will be included in it, and you're going to have to pay an equal share for every product that we produced. It's very simple.
All right, this was a good talk, Sam. I think Lucas just nailed it. I think we can just go.
Oh no, we ain't done yet.
We ain't done
I got more shit.
Oh no!
We
I was about to go watch Righteous Gemstones. Never mind.
We ain't done yet. But I did not know, Lucas, that like I looked up Thor's budget. Thor 4 was $250 million for Thor 4 and that terrible CG.
That movie was trash.
Right, but I'm saying look at the freaking budget. That's nuts.
You're not going to find a budget as low as what The Flash's is for a film that you would expect to make more money. Like that was the key part. Is that they really cut it down, but they did it after the acquisition happened because they knew they weren't going to continue this shit. When David said that he valued DC to an extent where he felt that changes needed to be made, that told you up front that it was going to be new people. But I have other thoughts about why the DCEU failed as a whole. But I don't know if y'all want me to go into it now and we could bridge into everything else, or we could talk about something else, or I can talk about this now. We bridge into everything else, so we're not just overly running in time.
So no,
Lucas,
it's fine.
Lucas, life is good, but it could be better.
No, so I think what we could do is we equally kind of talk about like, you know, the ups and the downs of how we got here as far as DCEU to the progression
then I
of
could
DCU.
start first, and then I would be quiet so everyone else can talk.
Yeah. So that's
great. Okay. Here's the thing. I've said it from the beginning. Sam hates that I say it. Sam even hid a watch party that we did of the film, and that was Man of Steel. Man of Steel, for everybody that does not know, and I'm going to say this for people that understand this properly. Thor in 2022 cost $250 million to make. Man of Steel in 2012 cost Warner Brothers $258 million to make. That film made $669 million back, which means that its net profit was $40 million. It dropped 65% from weekend 1 to weekend 2 for a Superman movie. Man of Steel was a failure. It was a failure because it did not make the money it was supposed to make. It was a failure because too many cooks were in the kitchen. It was written by Christopher Nolan. They wanted GDT to direct it. He passed on it. They wanted Affleck to direct it. He passed on it. They wanted Robert Zemeckis to direct it. He passed on it. They wanted Darren Aronofsky to direct it. He passed on it. It ended up in the hands of Zack Snyder. Once the film did not get the returns that they hoped it would get, instead of them course correcting, they doubled down and gave Zack over $300 million to do BVS. Halfway through the production, they realized, oh shit, we fucked up. This movie is horrible. But it was too late at that point. So they tried to course correct through edits, which you never do, because Zack Snyder's a horrible director to try to edit anything out of. Anyone who saw The Watchmen, you understand that. That was another very expensive movie that Warner Brothers gave him that made absolutely no money. But after BVS came out, or after Zack had the bright idea to say, Man of Steel wasn't the hit it should be, we should put Batman in the movie. That's literally how we got BVS so early. BVS fails at the box office. Granted, it made lots of money, but it made under $1 billion. And for its budget, while it made a slight profit, it was looked at as a bad movie. And the DCU went down this train of releasing that bad movie. They went down, then gave David Ayers a lot of money. He did the Suicide Squad, which was more profitable than both of Zack Snyder's first films with the DCU, but it wasn't received well. We didn't get a well-received film for the DCU until Wonder Woman. They rebound from Wonder Woman, and then they do this horrible, chaotic film where Zack Snyder used the excuse of his daughter dying to leave the project.
Oh,
Justice
dude.
League.
Oh.
Once Justice League
come on, man.
was in production, and they announced that it was going to be directed by Zack, they announced the writers of the project, but then they announced that Ben Affleck, for some odd reason, was going to have an extreme amount of input on that film because he was unhappy with BVS. It was just too chaotic from the beginning. And then when you get the regime change, even after Aquaman with James Wan, because that was the first project that did not have any input from anyone on the outside. They gave James full control of Aquaman. That's why Aquaman became the biggest hit of the DCU. Aquaman, a character who we joked about talking to fucking fish, became the biggest grossing film of a franchise that also includes Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman.
I want next.
Aquaman.
After you done, I want next.
Like, that makes absolutely no fucking sense. But after Aquaman came out, we saw how long it took for them to get this Flash movie off the ground. At that time, also, for some odd reason, a Black Adam project that has been talked about for 10 years beforehand also gets greenlit. In between it, we get an amazing first Shazam movie from David. But because Shazam did not make the return that they hoped for, granted, it still made a profit, just did not make the return they hoped for, they put a sequel on a back burner because they didn't know what to do. This became the flux of WB because at that point they didn't know what the DCEU was. They just understood we got to get from under Zack Snyder. He's horrible. We cannot let him continue to go on. Like he makes movies that no editor would ever want to touch because if you edit it, it wouldn't make any sense. And because of that, they got stuck in a loop of bad projects, bad movies, bad everything. The course correct started when they brought James Gunn in for Suicide Squad. Because it was like, oh, okay, at least we know what's going to happen here. Like, we're going to let him do whatever he wants to do with the Suicide Squad. That's, I think, critically, the most successful film out of the DCEU is the Suicide Squad.
Life
Then
is
you
good,
allowed him to do,
but it could be
then
better.
you allowed him to do Peacemaker. Again, an amazing, successful show for them out of the DCU. And then they rebounded with these last bits right after the takeover of what was going to happen. When David said, I value these properties way too much to just put out what we've been putting out. That was a sign then that he was going to change everything. The problem was, before he could take over, that's when Jason made a decision, because he was running HBO Max at the time, that he was going to put out the world's longest, horrible film humanly possible. And that was Zack Snyder's Justice League. And he only put it out to attempt to bring more viewers to HBO Max. But that is called cutting off your nose to despite your face, because the moment he put it out, you confused everybody. You made them think there was a possibility that the Snyderverse could come out while at the same time you acknowledging that it was never going to come back. And as me and Sam sit on here multiple times over the years, and I kept on telling people, Zack Snyder releasing these clips would be deemed illegal unless Warner Brothers wanted him to put it out because they were trying to build hype for a project. And then once it comes out, people thinking, oh, it was organic that this happened. How the fuck would you think that if they gave Zack Snyder the permission to put out the material that he did, when in turn we saw what happened with Batgirl? When those directors wanted to put out clips, they burned every bit of footage before it could come out. So that should have told you they planned that Snyder cut, but it ruined the DC brand as you knew it. The saving grace was them deciding we're going to hire new leadership. So now we're stuck with 4 films. I think, no, 5. I'm sorry. Is it 5 films or 4? Maybe 5 or 4 films.
It's 4, I think. Well, now we got 2 more left. Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, Blue Beetle does not count in this because Blue Beetle was made after this.
So it's just Aquaman.
But we're stuck with 4 films.
Mm-hmm.
We were stuck with Black Adam. We were stuck with Shazam 2. We were stuck with The Flash, and we were stuck with Aquaman 2.
Right.
Like, these movies still have to come out, but we don't care what they get in return. It put an audience in flux, because if a studio is telling you up front that none of this shit is going to continue, why would you go see it if you want a continuing universe? They didn't even do the other thing that they did with Matt Reeves' Batman, which is telling you that these will be Elseworlds. No, they just said we're putting these movies out. That should have told you then the way they viewed these last movies. But also, at the same time, we saw what was happening at the CW when everything was being canceled. But everything was being canceled because, as James told you, through animation, television, and movies, all of my shit is connected to each other. So if it came on beforehand, it will not exist in my universe. So then that's when people question why Supergirl all of a sudden ended, The Flash all of a sudden ended, Stargirl all of a sudden ended. Now you had the Gotham show that no one really cared about, but that oddly had an audience ends. But then you have Superman and Lois out there. And I know it was certain people who championed for Superman and Lois, but the whole time you're championing for Superman and Lois, you still had to realize the show has to end before James' movies come out, because that show does not exist in James's universe. Right. So then they gave them 10 episode season after they completely decimated its budget. It was for a reason. He's trying to drop all of this shit into the ground, but you still need content to license to other people. So that's why you have all of a sudden Amazon with multiple DC licenses. You have Netflix who's trying to get more licenses like they used to have. Because if it wasn't for Netflix, none of those shows on the CW will exist, because none of those shows on the CW garnered the ratings necessary to continue. They only continued because on top of what they made from advertising on the CW with those shows, Netflix was paying $1 to $3 million per episode per show to Warner Brothers. It was a cash grab for them. The moment Netflix backed out, you start seeing them cancel shows left and right. Now that they're about to get back in business in Netflix, it allows things to continue on longer. But James is very keen on the DC stuff will only be under him and Peter. He doesn't want it under anybody else, except for when they deem Elseworlds. So far, the only Elseworlds is Batman with Matt Reeves, the Penguin show, and the Joker movie. Nothing else is an Elseworld. So that means nothing else is going to continue with this. So, in whole, what we got to look at is that the DCEU was started on the foundation of a bad movie. When you start on the foundation of a bad movie, how do you think your universe can possibly progress when it took, 2 to 3 movies before we got to Wonder Woman?
Yeah.
That's a hell of a stretch there.
Yeah.
And then right after Wonder Woman, nothing else was good, including Wonder Woman 2, which was equally bad. And for everybody who clowns James for talking about how great he thought The Flash was, The Flash still has a positive critic rating. Guess what? Zach came out and told everybody how great Wonder Woman 1984 was. Anybody fucking think that movie's good? Absolutely not. But it's part of marketing. That's how you market shit. You make people who goddamn well know the movie ain't as good as it is. You make them say that shit is as good as it is.
Right.
But for the DCEU, it started because you thought at first if you gave Christopher Nolan enough control of a Superman movie that he would stick around. Christopher Nolan does not stick around like that. He left. And then you left everything in the hands of Zack Snyder, who was coming off of Sucker Punch and Guardians of the Owl.
Christ.
How the fuck did you think anything he did was going to be good coming off of those projects?
Yeah. Thank you.
Because of that, your universe was doomed to fail from the beginning. Because if you had the balls that Warner Brothers should have had, it should have ended with Man of Steel. And you should have done a sequel to Man of Steel with a new director. And said, hey, we need to change the perception of Superman really, really quick. Because this emo, muscly guy who's being played by Henry Cavill, that is not Superman. I don't know who the fuck that is. That is Homelander before he becomes completely evil. But that damn sure ain't
That's
Superman.
not Homelander. He's not that bad.
Hold on now.
That's
not Omni-Man. Come on now.
No. What I'm saying is the tone of the character. This Superman gave no hope. Because that wasn't his thing. I think in the movie he says, that's not my job. It's fucking Superman. How could that be the possibility? But I can't blame Zach for that because he didn't write that shit. Christopher Nolan wrote a Superman movie. Who the fuck asked Christopher Nolan to write a Superman movie? But because you made that mistake, it doomed your universe from the beginning. And that's how we got to the DCEU being looked at as a joke. I'm done now.
Yeah.
I think I'm done.
Thanks, Lucas.
Yeah. he said a little bit, didn't he?
Thanks. Jeez.
Look, he was sweating by the end there.
No, I think
TD Jakes.
Yeah, I think Lucas, you bring up a lot of good points. I think I thought Man of Steel was a good movie. Do I think that, the way that Zack Snyder, I do wonder if he would have had kind of like his say, because obviously the ins and outs of kind of like what's going on in the back of Hollywood a lot better than myself. But it's like when I look at Zack Snyder's Justice League, the one that came out, what was that, in 2021 when it came out? Yeah. That was leaps and bounds better than the original Justice League that we saw. And that was, obviously editing and all that. So it does make me wonder, you were saying Aquaman was the highest grossing one, but that was in 2008 when Game of Thrones was still hot and Jason Momoa was there. And realistically, that brought in
2018. He was well good from that. Yeah.
But that you got to understand, that was probably one of the first ones that kind of bridged that gap between men and women going to the theaters to see it, because women were going to see him and men were seeing it just to see Aquaman, I guess, talk to fish. But I think for me, it's when you kind of look, or when I think about like DC, it all goes down to two main characters, Batman and Superman. And realistically, the last good Batman movie we had wasn't even in this slate of movies. Like, it wasn't part of the DCEU.
Right.
The Superman movie, like I enjoyed Man of Steel, and I have no issues with that one. But yeah, it's like when you kind of think about it, those are the two main characters. And I think in hindsight, what you said, like getting another director to do a Man of Steel sequel probably would have been the smartest thing. Because if you look at the MCU, they stuck with Tony Stark, with Iron Man for a couple movies before they did this giant team up, before they did, any of this stuff. And realistically, from Man of Steel until they did Justice League, it was just four years, I believe, the time gap. Which, if you look at Marvel, when they did their first movie to, like the first Avengers movie, it was way more than 4 years past. So it's almost like DC was always trying to rush to like keep up with Marvel, when Marvel was just doing their own thing, and they should have just left them do that. And I think that's where it kind of started getting wonky. I think once they did Suicide Squad and they started introducing the more R-rated movies, that could have been a good niche for them to go into. Because if you have R-rated, obviously like Peacemaker, like you said, did great. The Suicide Squad did great. Even Birds of Prey, I thought was all right. Not great, but it was all right. But I think that's kind of where they kind of dumbed it down. Like Black Adam should have been a rated R movie. Black Adam felt like Venom, where if it had an R rating, that could have done spectacular. But I think, everyone's just following that whole thing. I don't know. I think for me, it's, without focus, without having a good center of having Superman and Batman be your pillars, that's where kind of, they were building their house on sand and not on rocks. They just kept going wider and wider instead of trying to build up.
He preaching now.
Yeah, gotta sprinkle it in from time to time. No, but I think that's probably where their biggest downfall was. It's, they, instead of building up your two main characters, and we can throw Wonder Woman in there just because, at the end of the day, like, it's Wonder Woman. But, I think not having a powerful Batman and Superman, like one that people could rely on, and all they kept doing was just going wider and wider and trying to find obscure characters. For me personally, like, I'm super psyched, like, for Blue Beetle. But at the same time, it's probably because I'm Spanish and I'm a superhero. And
it's good he one of us, y'all.
Yeah, I want to see a good one, But
no problems with that, Jorge. That's the only reason people went to go see Black Panther.
Yeah, well, no,
he's not wrong. He's not wrong. He's not. Let's not pretend that he is wrong. He is not wrong.
It doesn't hurt. You know what I'm saying? Like, you look at the cast here. There you go. See, Ron knows what's up. You look at the cast here, and it's like, it gives me some hope. Like, I'm like, cool, we got this whole new look. So I don't know. I'm hoping that with this new, like DCU that they're doing, that it's actually going to write the course. But, at the same time, I don't know about you guys, but it's like superhero fatigue. It's like, it's real. Because look at some of these movies and I'm like, nothing is really good here. Like, they're throwing out mediocre movies, and I hate saying it this way, but like, Lucas, you brought it up, and it's like, if a movie doesn't click $1 billion, it's considered a failure. And that's wild.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
that's where we're at now.
Like, that's just crazy. Like, that's the standard now. $1 billion freaking dollars.
Right.
And I think that's the part where I'm just like, I enjoyed The Flash for what it was. And it didn't make $1 billion. Am I going to call it a complete failure? No, because I laughed at it. I enjoyed it. Like, there's a lot of the movies in the DC and I hate that the DCEU that you can go through, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. And I thought they were great movies. Did they make? I haven't seen Shazam, Fury of God. I'm just gonna throw that out. But you look at that, and it's like, I think DC has always dropped the ball in focusing on like the wrong things. Like Black Adam could have been a great movie, but like some of the best characters in Black Adams, they basically like sprinkled them in and didn't really use them.
The Justice Society.
Yeah. Like it's almost like they forced so much. Like DC reminds me of some, like, MCU seems very calculated to me, and DCEU seemed like someone was throwing spaghetti and hoping that something would stick, and whatever somewhat stuck, they're like, cool, let's run with that.
Yeah,
let's see what we can do.
Yeah,
and I think that's the part that that bums me out.
Wait a minute, what?
Yeah. And you're not, you know what, Jorge, the thing is, you're not wrong. And what's so unfortunate about it is DC was trying to keep up with Marvel, and Marvel didn't even use their big guns.
No,
they didn't touch X-Men. They weren't touching Spidey. They didn't even use their biggest IPs. They were just using their second tier to build the MCU. And then DC came out and they were like, let's do our own universe. And where they screwed up is there's so many good comics out there. There's so many phenomenal DC stories that are out there. And what they did, they said, hey, what if we did a what if universe with all of it? What if Superman was depressed, right? What if Flash was autistic? What if Wonder Woman was happy? Like they just took all of these characters not normally being themselves and said, hey, this is going to be our universe. And then on top of that, like y'all said, you started it off with Man of Steel, Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder can't write. He cannot write. And so anything near him and a pen, you need to stay away from it. Like he does his best. Zack Snyder does his best work when it's something that someone else has written, and then
a group project.
He adapts it. Right. Watchmen, good. 300, fine. Right. Like these are things that are good. But like Lucas said, Sucker Punch, we pretend that movie doesn't exist. I bought that movie just to use the disc as a frisbee. Okay, like it's bad.
It's a coaster.
Bad. Right. It's bad. It's so bad. And on top of that, like the thing is because Jorge touched on something that was really good about like fatigue with superhero movies. The thing I've always said from the beginning, you stick the villain, you stick the landing. And DCEU started screwing up from the jump because Batman v Superman came out and we still don't know who the villain we still don't know who the villain was, right? We still like, okay, so it's Lex Luthor, maybe, but then he made Doomsday, ? But then Doomsday was made from Zod, and like it's just none of it makes any sense. You move forward to Wonder Woman, and it's like, okay, I guess Ares is the villain. Meanwhile, on the MCU side, the entire time they were building towards Thanos, and they made sure you knew they were building towards Thanos. Now, what the MCU screwed up with was they shot their shot with Thanos and don't have anything as epic to follow up with that.
Preach about that.
Yeah, that's their biggest screw up. That's why everything is trash that they do now, because it's like, okay,
shucks. Shots fired.
I said what I said. There's a reason James Gunn was done after Guardians 3 because he knows it's going down. The ship's going down, right? But the thing is, the DC was so hell bent on, oh, let's make an extended universe. They made an extended universe that wasn't actually connected. It didn't make any sense, and they kept changing their minds about things. Like at one point, they're like, "Oh, Joe Manganiello, he's going to be Deathstroke. We're going to do a Batman movie." Actually, scratch that. We're not going to do a Batman movie. We're just going to do Wonder Woman 2 instead. Like they never actually figured out.
We're not allowed to talk. Hold up, Kenny. We're not allowed to talk about that Batman movie.
Yeah.
We're just not allowed to talk about it no more.
Not allowed. But yeah, they just never. They never found their footing, and it was one of those things. Like even though they never found their footing, they just kept going, and they're like, "We didn't find our footing, but let's just trip for 8 years straight. Let's just keep tripping, and it's gonna be fine. We're gonna eventually catch our footing." And they never did. They never did. And like you said, these are characters that everyone knows and loves. I'm sorry, I don't think it's difficult to make a good Superman movie, to make a good Batman movie, to make a good Wonder Woman movie. These are characters that they're the biggest, they're like the biggest IPs. But if you take those characters and only do stuff in a what if universe, it's never going to work because fans of those characters, one, aren't going to be happy with it. And two, you're not going to draw an audience with something that dark and that gritty. Because the thing is, who likes superheroes? Kids like superheroes. There are no kids out there saying, "Oh my God, I love Man of Steel." There's no kids. There's no kids out there that's like, "Oh man, I'm going for the Hans Zimmer score." Like not a single kid said that, right? We love the Hans Zimmer score, right?
Speak for yourself.
But it's not filling the seats. It's not filling the seats. Hell, Superman had a navy blue costume. It's supposed to be bright. It's supposed to be colorful. It's supposed to be happy. Right, this dude out here, like it's just the darkness of the DCEU did not work because honestly, it's not supposed to be dark. The fact that you walked out of a superhero movie and instead of feeling hope, you were like, "Damn, he snapped the hell out of his neck." Right? That's not Superman. And it left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. And then Batman v Superman came out and was way worse. Because what we were thinking was, okay, with Batman v Superman, they're going to do all of this cool stuff because we've already seen all the good writing that's come out from when Batman and Superman fight, right? But every single time these movies would come out, instead of them sticking the landing with something they knew would work, they're like, "But what if we did something different though?" And Batman v Superman was way too long and had no set villains. And they're introducing characters that should have had a movie of their own. If I had been in that control room, fine, introduce Batman, have them fight, give them some villain that at least we know for them to unite against. Make Death of Superman a movie by itself. Death of Superman was such a huge thing when it came out. It was massive, right? Give Death of Superman its own thing. Hell, go through that whole thing where they introduced Superboy and Superman Red and Blue, Cyborg Superman. Do the whole shebang because at least it ended hopeful, right? Even after all this stuff came out with the DCEU, they said, okay, what if Zack Snyder was allowed to continue his story, right? And we looked at it and we read it, and it was like, y'all remember that clip when, God, what was her name? Oh God, I can't even think of her name. Homegirl tried to rap, and the dude called in and was like, "That shit is trash," right? You know what I'm talking about? And you know exactly. I can't even think of her name right now. But it was one of those things. You saw what Zack Snyder's plan was, and you're like, "That's not even good." Like, I'm you know what? I'm actually glad that they canceled that because that actually sounds horrible. And it's not that Zack is a bad director. He's just not good at something that's already done, right? He's not good at something that's already done. It's the same person that made all the graphics for GTA 5. They didn't write GTA 5. GTA 5 was good because it was an epic group project that came together, right? The same thing can be said. The DCEU, when they gave Zack Snyder the reins, they could have given it to an 8th grader. It would have had a similar outcome. It would have had a similar outcome because the 8th grader hit puberty, everything is dark and gritty, and it's like, you know what? We need a Linkin Park soundtrack for this. Let's just make it right. And it just does not work. It doesn't work because these are characters that are supposed to be hopeful. Hell, even the sun eventually comes up in Gotham, right? But even then,
Snyder's universe.
Right, is that Snyder's universe? Sun never comes up. Suicide Squad, Aztec villain. What's his name? We don't need to know. Whatever. Move on from Suicide Squad, right? You're still just like, okay, I have no idea what's going on, but sure, let's see it because these are characters I know and love, and I hope they stick the landing. Okay, sweet. All right. Oh, but Jared Leto's in Suicide Squad. Is he the Joker? Okay, cool. So we're going to get him, right? Actually, no. More Aztec villain. Here you go. We're just going to throw this dude at you. You don't know what his name is. So they had no plan. What? So it was like they were doing an extended universe, but it wasn't actually ever connected, right?
It was extended.
It was extended, right? It was extended, right? It's like if someone said, okay, I'm making a Winnie the Pooh movie, and at the very end, they tease Thomas the Tank Engine for no reason. Does it connect? Not in any way whatsoever. But guess what? It's the Thomas the Tank Engine Winnie the Pooh extended universe, and we're just going to call it that. It's not related at all, but at some point, Thomas is going to run over a beehive, and Winnie the Pooh's going to get mad, and then they're going to meet, and hell, we might throw Teletubbies in there. Like, who knows?
And then Bambi's going to come out.
Right.
And Bambi's going to create a monster that's going to fight Winnie the Pooh and Thomas.
Yes. Even the way because I keep thinking about, like, in Batman v Superman, the way they just shoehorned in Kryptonite at the very beginning, like, oh, by the way, even though we never mentioned this in Man of Steel, it does exist. Like, it's like, what are we doing right now? What are we doing
Superman
right now?
Killed the Warlord at the beginning of BVS and nobody questioned it. A human being through a brick wall.
No one batted an eye. He had no issue with it. He literally killed a warlord and then went and banged Lois in his bathtub. Right? Like, no one had any issue with it whatsoever. No one had any issue with it whatsoever.
All right. So is it my turn?
Yeah.
Can I go?
Of course. It was a minute. We got to recover.
I'm a teacher, Sam. All you had to do was raise your hand.
No, you wouldn't have seen me raising my hand. You wouldn't have never even have seen me. So
look, I remember having arguments with people who tried to justify him driving that man through a mountain. Superman didn't kill him. Can you do that?
Bro, he's dead. He's dead. He's dead. Superman is a war criminal, dog. Superman, bro. George W. Bush would have loved Superman. Like,
So look,
in that episode of The Simpsons when they're beating a guy and the kid is crying, like, "Oh no, stop! He's already dead."
yeah, I'll even say that even if we taking that scene in comparison what the Flash basically had to do in Zack Snyder's Justice League, like he was kind of like, I can't just shift somebody's body very quickly because it would kill them. I have to gently maneuver them around because otherwise the range of motion is too much for a body to steel to handle. So yes, most likely he killed that warlord because he was on his woman.
No, most likely,
I'll admit that.
He flew up in the sky and the body disintegrated in his hands. He's like, oh, my bad. But he's African, so it's fine. He's black. We're cool. We're good.
So yeah, that in and of itself. But yeah, I'll go ahead and go next. So the truth of the matter is, for me, I mean, I think that there was too many cooks in the kitchen. In all honesty, like technically, if I'm not mistaken, Lucas, keep me honest. wasn't Green Lantern technically the start of the DCEU?
Yep.
In
100%.
2011, when that came out, that was supposed to start it. And
no, you lie. What?
I'm not lying.
Yes,
this
yes,
was supposed to
Green
be
Lantern was
the beginning
technically
for
the
Green Lantern.
first movie of the DCEU.
Yeah.
Is Green Lantern.
Yeah. So that crap that you literally saw in the sky, that was the beginning of the DCU, and then it progressed into Christopher Nolan progressively. Like, this is the thing. We know what
Iggy Azalea. Iggy Azalea. She was the one who was freestyling so horrible. I've been trying to think of her name the whole time. It was Iggy Azalea.
No.
I'm just
so
everybody.
We know who Christopher Nolan is, right? We know what kind of Batman movies he's made. Like, he tries to take something that is, you know, a fantastical character, a legendary character, and bring them down to our level, like making them human. And so the question was, and I think this is the reason why I never debate with people about Man of Steel, because I personally really love and like Man of Steel, but I'll never disparage anybody from saying this is not a Superman movie. I personally like the dissection of seeing Superman being brought down to a humanistic standpoint, even though he's never been human, even though he's always been like naturally full of hope because he's outside of our worldly understanding. That is who Superman is at his core. I understand it, but I love the dissection of, like, okay, conceptually, you take an actual other being and give them all these human emotions of how they process having all these powers and being an outsider and being less than, even though they're more than everybody else, and they happen to be brought up with it. I personally like that progression. But the truth of the matter is, Man of Steel is very, it's subjective what people's perspective on it. Critically, a lot of people are like, this is not my Superman. This is not the Superman that I know from comics. And I defended it because I appreciated what it actually was. But the problem with that is, foundationally, you only had Green Lantern, and then people having a disjointed perspective on what the ideals of what a Superman was supposed to be. And the other sad thing about this is Man of Steel as a movie, and I'm not trying to defend the movie, the truth of the matter is that was literally, I think, his first day was trying to defend against all these Kryptonians. And I was like, oh yeah, he's going to fail. Like, thousands of people are going to definitely die. And that's exactly what happened in the movie, but that's not what people want to see from a Superman. He's supposed to save
what if.
everyone.
It's still a what if movie.
It doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that that's what they started from.
Yeah.
So it's like, even though you have a lot of pocket of people that love like that dissection of seeing Superman in a different way, and I still to this day love a lot of the action with that because I've never seen Superman from that level, it just didn't line up with what people really wanted, because they were like, okay, well, no, you need to give me this. And so because of that backlash, DC panicked. Like, now you got two unsuccessful things. One, that you dropped like a lot of like preparation, like, okay, Christopher Nolan's going to continue. Like, Christopher was like, no, I'm done. And you build it off of his foundation of how he tries to make stuff realistic with the supernatural character foundation. That's not going to work. So then you don't have Kevin Feige. You only have Zach, this director, and he's having to build this off of nothing. So there, at that point, there's nothing but a whole bunch of cooks in the kitchen, period.
Yeah.
Because from that point, I even remember that announcement, you know, I think it was Harry Lennox at Comic-Con. I was like, oh, snap. They're going to make the world finest. It's not the world's finest. It's going to be Batman versus Superman. And I was like, what does that mean? And we get there to the movie, we're like, oh, snap. This is not the fight that I was expecting. And I don't know how to justify any of this to anybody.
Who asked for this?
This is cool to me, but I don't think the general population are going to be with it, and they weren't. So it was kind of like the trade-off was, for me, I was like, okay, I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying the second levels of certain things about this, from the score, from the cinematography, from certain dissections of the characters. But the general audience, they just know this hero is going to save us. And this hero over here is going to help them. They're going to clash, and then they're going to work together to save everybody. But that's not what happened in that movie, because there were so many cooks in the kitchen. Like, okay, all right, well, Man Cell didn't work. We need to rush Batman in there to get that working, push it out, and then also interject.
No Doomsday in there too.
No, not even just that. They had to found it. It's like the dawn of justice. So you had to foundationally put the Justice League inside of it. And I think that the truth of the matter is this. Yes, I think that Man of Steel is a great movie. I really enjoy it. But honestly, all of their standalone movies thrive better than any of the movies they have with other people in them. Every single one of them. Wonder Woman, as a standalone movie, is probably one of their best. Aquaman was profitable and honestly had one of the dopest intros with Nicole Kidman that they still, I don't think, from a choreography standpoint, they still haven't topped some of those fight scenes. Like
their
that scene with
standalones
Jason
are
Momoa
way
at the end
their mixed ones.
was freaking dope. I didn't like the movie as a whole, but the fights were freaking dope. And then even it's kind of like, I was like, when I think about the Joker, right? I was like, yo, this is an Elseworld story. And I mean, to Lucas's point, and I can't hate even saying this. Whether I say, let me try to be careful how I say this. Whether or not I liked Aquaman, it is something to say that Aquaman was completely under the control of another individual that wasn't Zack. And that may have been motivation to people to be like, oh, this is interesting. And I think the same exact thing happened with Todd Phillips. Everybody was like, oh, well, this isn't Jared Leto's Joker. Like, oh, I'm interested. I need to see what this is going to be. So by the time that Matt Reeves came up there, they were like, oh, snap. Is this going to be our new Batman? Because I want to see more of this. So everything pivoted from that point. And these are still all standalone. Even technically, when they sculpted the Suicide Squad, it still was very different than David Ayers.
Self-contained.
And self-contained. So it's still like almost like a standalone. So the sad thing is that they don't know how to do connective tissue because there's not anything foundationally to start on, and there's not anybody to give them a foundation to maneuver. So when you don't have like a disjointed situation, DC thrives. They can really thrive. Like, honestly, the Batman was one of the best superhero movies last year. The Joker still was critically acclaimed. Suicide Squad was still critically acclaimed. Whether or not it made money or not, it's still, everybody really was like, that's a good movie. So it's like, they can do good standalone stuff, but they don't have an actual point of person to shoot. And now they actually do. I personally, and I'm going to go into a whole other debate later about this, I actually enjoyed The Flash. I actually really enjoyed The Flash.
I enjoyed Michael Keaton.
I enjoyed The Flash. I'm talking about me.
Yeah.
I'm talking about me.
Yes.
I enjoyed
100% so.
So what
Ezra is great. Ezra is great as the Flash. And as a character, he's amazing as the Flash, actually.
And so Sam, one thing that I really think you stuck on was the fact that they did so well separate. And that does have me excited about James Gunn, because when they asked him like what he was basing it off of, he mentioned Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. When they started Justice League, we already had Superman animated series, which was good. We already had Batman the animated series, which was good, where they had already introduced other characters in the Justice League. And the first episode of the Justice League was introducing Martian Manhunter and how all of them would come together and interact. They had already been good successfully. And then it wasn't one of those things where they were shoehorned into other shows. They just brought them together and actually made it make sense. Like them learning to interact with each other, like meeting each other, and it worked. So but I completely agree with what you said.
Or a better way to look at it, as Sam pointed out about just not being focused on being able to create a connected universe. If we look at it, and it's something I always bring up, and we've had countless discussions about the MCU. In phase 1, it's one good movie. Just one. And that's Iron Man 1. All the rest of them are average to bad movies. But it had a central threat in the movie. You go to phase 2, it's almost identical to the exact same thing. The MCU, out of 20 plus movies that people love to talk about, I literally had a discussion in one of our chats a month and a half ago of someone who I respect his opinion saying, I don't look at the MCU as separate movies. And me saying you can't, because if you did, most of them would be bad. But it had a central threat in it. The one thing DC didn't understand at the time it was trying to build everything is if you don't have one central threat in it, no one cares. They're going to judge your movie as solos at that point. And that's what happened. Man of Steel is a solo film, and it got judged as such. BVS, while technically a sequel to Man of Steel is a solo film. So was Suicide Squad. So all of them got judged as such. And that's why you got the wonder of Wonder Woman, which is one of the best superhero films ever made, is Wonder Woman.
It was good.
But you judge Wonder Woman as a strictly solo film. You don't judge it as a piece of a connected universe because there's no overarching villain. There's no way that you could just interject in a whack ass movie Thanos at the end of it to make up for the movie being bad and people completely forgetting about the bad movie they saw instead of paying attention to the end credit scene. Yeah. Because you didn't have that luxury and you had to make every movie good. You struggled because, as Keenan said, you had someone who does not write a good film behind it. And that was the problem of it all. But that's what they think they have now course corrected, is by putting an actual writer behind the films. Because if you think about it, and I hate to say this to you, Zack Snyder folks out there, but Zack Snyder's best movie for most people, you would say, is Dawn of the Dead, which is a great fucking movie. Guess who wrote Dawn of the Dead? James Gunn. Mm-hmm. Like, what did you expect? He had nothing to do with the writing process of it. It's the same thing with the MCU. If you ever look at it, Kevin strictly does not allow directors to give their own vision. That's why so many of them have either bowed out or passed on doing Marvel movies, because you can't have your own vision. But once the big threat, as Keaton said, went away of Thanos, we see what's going on with the MCU right now. They're at a flux of not understanding how to move forward with anything. And this is through now countless movies and television shows. What happens with James, as we're about to get into with his version of now the DC universe, I absolutely loved when he announced it. He said, and the first phase of it is gods and monsters. He's literally now taking you to the comic book perspective and saying, hey, guess what you're going to see in the first phase of us? Gods and monsters. Don't expect to see anything else in this phase but that. But that's what you need now. Because if you can't lean on one central villain, you better lean on one central theme of what your movies represent.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good segue into us talking about what this means moving forward, because we hadn't talked about it. I mean, we've all got our doubts. And I think, I mean, we can all probably say is, if you ask the audience, if you did a poll for 1,000 people and asked them the moment that James, said what he said, did you guys care to even watch The Flash after we knew that there's nothing lingering to see? If there's nothing at the end of those post-credits, because the one thing I didn't like is the last end credit scene with Jason Momoa in The Flash, because I was like, the only thing this is telling me is that based on your universes, you're letting me know that there are going to be multiple different Batmans, but outside of that, there's nothing continuing to show me anything. And I feel like that was deliberate. There's nothing going there other than, okay, the next movie is going to be Aquaman. That's it. And so I think that from people's perception, it's like there's nothing leading them to anything, which is maybe why I think, I don't know. I can't say that. When the Black Adam came out, as much as I hated the family and I hated the little kid in that movie, and I love everything about the Justice Society, it was kind of like everybody knew that Henry Cavill was going to show up in that. They were going to see Superman because it was leaning to something potential. But then after that, all got cut, and they were like, okay, with the Flash, it's like, well, why should I care? I mean, I think the same thing happened with Daredevil season 3. I was just talking to Jorge about it. It's like when Daredevil season 3 happened. Go ahead.
I don't necessarily think it's that people didn't go see Flash because they didn't care about Flash. I think that it's so much stuff with Flash going on. One, for people out there who make the mistake, and that's the key part. It's too many people that make the mistake of thinking the Flash is a huge main character that everyone knows about because they had a show on CW. The Flash's show on CW averaged about 1.5 million viewers per week. To put that in perspective, on any main network, that fucking season wouldn't last 8 episodes. Again, as I brought up earlier, it only lasted on the CW as long as it did because Netflix was paying a hell of a lot of money per Flash episode. But The Flash as a show was never a huge hit. It was never even a minor hit from what we think of a television hit. So people think or have the perception that The Flash is this huge character. I can tell you, again, as someone who before comic book films, I knew nothing about these characters. I didn't even know there were multiple Flashes. Okay, I was confused when people say, "Nah, Wally West." I said, "Who the fuck is that?" They said, "That's the Flash." I said, "No, it's not. It's this little white guy here. His name is Barry. That's the Flash." And they would tell me, "Oh, Lucas, it's multiple Flashes." I said, "Oh, I didn't know that." Then they would tell me it's a Speed Force. I said, "What the fuck is a Speed Force?" They said, "Well, that's how Flash get his powers." I said, "No, he was struck by lightning and he can move lightning fast. That's why his name is Flash." But again, from someone who's never read a comic book, this is not a big character. And I think before the movie was made, they treated the film as such as this is not a main character. This is not Superman. This is not Batman. This is not Wonder Woman. The Flash is a secondary character. So I didn't expect this movie to like do, as Keaton said, unfortunately, what people always assume is that every film's going to do $1 billion. No, but I at least expected 500. But then the issue became everything with Ezra, the delays that happened with this film. And all those other issues is why it's not doing financially what people thought it would do, but also has to do with Warner Brothers not marketing this movie the way that it would to lead it to be more financially successful. Critically, for a film critically to still be positive. Yeah. I think it's the second most positive film rated in the DCEU behind Wonder Woman. Right currently. Like that should tell you something. That should tell you something. I think besides Wonder Woman and Shazam. It's Wonder Woman, Shazam, and then The Flash. Out of movies out of the DCEU, I think from a critical perspective or how they're ranked. So critically, the film is received well. Better than a lot of films that are more successful than this film is. The problem is, though, it's a complete disconnect with everything to do with what's left of this DC universe until James's stuff come out. So that's why I don't think any of these films can succeed. Aquaman has a chance because Aquaman, the first one, stood on its own from everything else. So you got to believe the second one is going to do the exact same thing. Blue Beetles, again, James already backed the Blue Beetle, said that's the first character of the DCU. So that's letting you know that character's continuing after this is all over anyway.
And it's standalone by itself completely.
Is it exact? But that's where DC thrives at, because for everyone who hates DC, or if everyone claims that every movie of DC is a failure, still off a per film basis, DC movies make more money than Marvel movies.
That's crazy.
If you don't believe me, look this shit up. It's fucking ridiculous. Per movie basis, and I'm talking about of recent movies, not going back to the 89 Batmans and shit like that. Per movie basis, the DC movies make more money than Marvel movies. So that tells you people and the appetite is still there. Superhero fatigue is something that I brought up in 2018, Sam.
Yeah.
When I kept on telling us in our other chat, I said, "Oh, don't worry about it. Just wait till 2019." I said, because once the big threat is gone in those other people's movies, you won't care about these characters anymore. And you're going to have to lean on the big characters, which I said at that time, Batman, Spider-Man, and X-Men.
Yeah.
You're going to have to lean on those characters. Yep. Superman, amazingly, for everybody who knows this character, he is not a big movie character. He's a big television character. He's not a big movie character because most people have not nailed in a movie aspect the hope that it takes to make a Superman movie. Superman movies are extremely difficult because of the amount of hope you have to put into it. Superman it's peace, justice, and the American way. Yeah. Nigga, we don't like America right now. You know how difficult that is going to be to sell to most people? Like, it's a difficult sell. We saw Marvel do it, though, with Captain America. Of understanding what you had to change to sell that character to a new audience. That's the same thing with Superman. He has to be sold to a new audience. It just so happens that possibly one of the best people to be behind selling that character would be James Gunn. Because I'd be goddamn if he pulled a rabbit out his hat with Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yeah, he did.
Like, literally,
he did.
Marvel has put out misfire after misfire for the last 6 movies. The only one that wasn't one currently is Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yep.
Like, it's the only one. You got to understand that he put hope behind Peter Quill. What the fuck do you think he's gonna do with Superman?
Right.
Like, come on now. We got. That's what I said. We got to get to the hope of the DCU because I have absolute faith in James. I have faith. I have more faith in Peter as a producer because again, I love the Conjuring universe, and the Conjuring universe, like anything else, has had its duds. Annabelle, The Nun, which is the worst horror movie ever made in existence.
I heard The Nun was really bad. I can't watch the movies. I'm too skittish.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to apologize to Jorge up front because I don't mean it the way it's going to sound. But the Mexican one that they made with the Mexican folklore horror movie that's
The Curse of La Llorona.
Llorona.
It has a name.
Yeah.
Jesus. Lucas.
That movie's not good. But again, you never
Made
lose
it seem like it's like a movie about Taco Bell or something. Like, dang, dog, like it has a name. Like, Jesus.
I couldn't pronounce the name.
You
That's
could
why I
have
said the
Googled
Mexican
that.
one.
You could have Googled that real quick.
That's why I said the Mexican one. And if I would have said it, it would have
God.
came out Le Toro Taco Bell. Like, no, we're gonna do that. So I said it the way I said it. But what I'm saying is, even through the bad films of the Conjuring universe, you never lose hope that they understand the direction of what they should be doing. Because Peter is the type of person that's his goal. Granted, Peter, he's the main producer on some of these DC projects that were solo projects. Like that's the key part of it. And you include him with a guy like James who's going to care about every project that comes out. And for them to upfront tell you, we're now going to set a standard on these projects. We're not rushing anything out. It's the same faith I had all of a sudden in DC. In Disney with Kathleen Kennedy when she said what she said about Star Wars, which was we're not rushing anything out. You'll get a project when we think we have it nailed. Mm-hmm. That's the key part. It's not an assembly line the way Marvel still puts out shit like an assembly line because Secret Wars is horrible. But you want someone to take their time with these projects so you get good projects. And I think that's the key part right now that you're going to get from DC moving forward, along with, again, I already mentioned, so I might as well say with Star Wars moving forward. And I think eventually with Marvel moving forward, you're going to get this because superhero fatigue is a real thing. And I think people have finally started to acknowledge it when you get The Boys as the biggest series.
Yeah.
Who or what the fuck were they before Amazon made them? I had the slightest. I didn't even know it was a comic book called The Boys, Invincible, or any of this shit. All of a sudden, all of this shit is coming out. Fuck, Craven is biting niggas' nose off in trailers. Like, you gotta understand at this point that they're doing so many characters. The fatigue was gonna naturally happen. What's next though is what happens with your progression to avoid the fatigue. DC has shown the ability to do so with Matt Reeves, the Batman, with Todd Phillips, the Joker. I think Marvel has shown the ability to avoid it with the Werewolves by Night thingy, which was fucking great. And you're like, oh my God, if you can do this off a regular basis, you know what you're going to get out of this shit. But this is what studios are now trapped with. You're going to have to battle against that you can't make superhero films the way you used to. There's no more just throwing an Avengers movie out there because fuck all of them. No one cares about Black Captain America. No one cares about Karen Marvel. No one cares about these characters. So because they don't, now you actually have to pinpoint and put together a good story that's going to lock people in. It's something exciting to see with all of these films. As I told everybody who loves comic book movies, you all complain about shit when you need to be grateful. You were nerds 20 years ago that no one cared about your opinion. Now all of a sudden you have all of these movies that help relive you all's childhood. A person like me, I don't give a fuck about this shit. But y'all should care about every one of these movies that come out. Even when it's bad, you should care. Because guess what? You all got picked on in high school, junior high, elementary school because you like these characters.
Lucas
now all of a sudden
take
these
our
characters
lunch money, dog.
popular. Enjoy this because this is y'all time to shine. Because guess what? This shit ain't gonna last forever. It was niggas who used to get picked on because they like Westerns in the 50s. That shit became popular. They became the popular kids. And guess what? That shit moved right the fuck along. And no one cares about a Western anymore. It's going to happen with that with superhero films. But while you're here, while they're making material of all of these comics that you all grew up on, that you all love, that you all couldn't imagine being made, sit back and enjoy it. Because again, this time is fleeting. is not gonna stay around forever. This shit's gonna go away. But you at least want to say, man, I got to live and I got to see The Boys, for anybody who read that growing up, and I got to see that made into something. I got to see all of these comic book characters
The
that I
show's
grew
way
up with,
better than the
that I
comics.
love. I got to see him. I got to see now Marvel ruined the X-Men and Fantastic Four like everyone else. Like you get to see this stuff coming up that you didn't imagine could possibly happen. And I think y'all should need to be grateful about that shit. What the heck?
So
I don't love hurting people's feelings. I'm just pointing out that
I love Secret Invasion. I see your
I want
comments.
you all to fully
I love
enjoy this
Secret
because it's not going to be something that's going to be around forever. We already see now. You see the evidence of it not being around forever. They're now spending twice as much money to make movies that don't make a like that's making 3/4 of what the movies used to make. So that tells you that audiences are pulling back on these. And eventually, because it's so much, audiences altogether are going to say, is it a Batman movie? Is it Spider-Man? Because if it's not Batman or Spider-Man, I don't care about it and I don't want to go waste my money to see it. That's going to happen soon.
Yeah.
Hey, Lucas,
Like y'all got at least a 5-year window.
do you think this is almost like the Madden thing, where Madden really hasn't changed in the past like 10 years? But
Yeah.
people like I myself, I only buy it every like 3 or 4 years because I don't care for the roster update. And I feel like, to put it, and I'm gonna geek out for video games for like a hot minute here. This reminds me of like when the NFL 2K series was out and Madden was out, and NFL 2K I always thought was so much better. But at the end of the day, all the money went to freaking Madden.
Yep.
And we ended up losing out on like a great like opportunity. And now it's like, you know, Madden, it's slow. Like it sucks at this point. Like I'll be the first to say it.
Oh yeah, glitchy.
It's one of those things where I'm just
they don't care because they're the only ones in the business.
Exactly. And
Same
I think
thing with Marvel for a while. They didn't care. They were the only ones in the business.
So
why would it matter?
I'm hoping, and just to sway us back into this new DCU, where we get like the NFL 2K series coming back, where we get like this really targeted and just take your time. Because I think one of the things also is every year we get 5 superhero movies at least for the past while.
Man, good God, it's so many of them.
And I think, you know, I would,
along with shows.
Yeah, it's like I would love for the pace to be slower but better. Like I don't want mediocre superhero movies. Like we've gotten that for quite a while now. Like, and I think, you know, you guys have alluded to it, without a big bad guy, like there's like Black Panther 2. We all saw that movie. Who talk about more than anything in that movie? Neymar, little Spanish guy.
Yep.
Awesome. But other than that, even that, where you had like this big bad guy, they made him into a good guy near the end, where he was like, "Oh, we're gonna fight with you and alongside you," and it's like, what? Like, you're right. After Thanos, that whole like arc, there is no bad guy, and since then, all those
they shot their shot.
Yeah.
They shot their shot and retired all the characters.
Well, no. They tried to create a bad guy, but then he started beating white women, so it just created a bigger problem for them. That's all it is. It created a bigger problem for them. They tried to create one.
He's just
Lucas, we can read the news. You ain't gotta say it.
He's just conquering white women with every leap and bound.
Moving on.
You ain't gotta say it.
That's the issue.
We on Elon's Twitter. You ain't gotta say it.
Moving on. I do think that there's something to what Jorge is saying. If you're using like these creature commandos, like I don't know who these characters are. I don't even know. And so I'm intrigued because I'm like, there's a reason why James is saying, oh, okay, we're exploring this. Or we're including this other group of people that we've never seen from a live action standpoint.
Gods and monsters.
Right. So it's kind of like it subverts people's expectations of what because they don't have anything to anticipate. They're like, okay, the reason why The Boys works, the reason why Invincible works, because they haven't seen anything like that. And it's not just as being rated R or gory or grotesque. It's showing a different narrative and a different purpose for why they're building to something else. And so I think that's the reason why when that announcement happened, there was a huge split.
I wasn't happy at first.
In our crew. Some of us were like, oh, let me hold my pearls. Some of us were like, good. And then some of us were like, all right, let's see where this goes, and just sitting back.
Yeah.
And
I know none of this shit. I'm so interested. Who the fuck is Creature Commanders? who the hell is the authority? Because the point that you're saying we're coming with the authority and then saying the authority is going to be in Superman's movie.
Right.
That's letting us know that they play an important part of whatever this first chapter is. But then James has done also a great job in marketing before anything comes out.
Yeah.
Of him even saying he's not eliminated any of these DCU people from coming over. Him saying, I'm not saying The Rock is done, but he won't be in phase 1 of what we have going on here. But I'm not saying that he can't come back. I think the same thing with Gal. I'm not saying she can't come back, but it won't be in phase 1. That's the way you build upon shit, because you're saying, hey, I've got these other shit that I need to introduce to you first.
Yeah.
And then to say the same voice actors from the animated stuff will be the live action people if we go live action with these characters. That's something you got to come up with, an original gimmick that hooks people.
Yeah.
That shit is going to hook people from saying, from animated to television to films, everything will be connected into, meaning it's all under the same umbrella, same universe. But that doesn't mean we got to overly connect things while shit is still incomplete.
Yeah, and I think that if you look at what Kathleen Kennedy did with the Star Wars universe, honestly, I mean, she kind of ran with that when it came to a lot of these ones were from the Clone Wars and like Rebels, and they took these same exact actors and put them in the live action format, which was crazy idea. But what it did is it shifted those people that spent years dedicated to these characters and invested in them, and they brought them to now the live action format. But I think with what James is doing, this is kind of unprecedented, because he said not just TV shows. He didn't just say animation. He said games. And I don't know what the heck that means. But I'm very
continuous story loop.
Right. And so if he plays his cards right, by the time we get to either this Comic-Con or next Comic-Con, and he starts to talk and open up about what chapter 2 is going to be, that excites me. I'm not even going to lie. Regardless of what I've liked from this previous universe, this is the first time I've ever said that, like, I'm excited to see what's going to happen next progressively for my DC characters. And I'm saying because I think that to say that, you know, I love Man of Steel, I love Wonder Woman, I love Zack Snyder's Justice League, I love those things, but I also singularly love Batman as a character, right? So I would love to see what that looks like moving forward. This Brave and the Bold concept, it says a couple different things to me. This is why I want to key in here. Brave and the Bold, if it taken from the comics that we're talking about, which is an interesting premise of going with the Batman Robin art, because during that time, that wasn't Bruce, right? Yeah. So the fact is there's Damian and that's actually Dick Grayson, meaning that you have to introduce not only a Bat family, but also what that means for that universe's roots. And I'm so excited about that.
I see Kenya's comment. I hope you're right about that. I would love to see Parasite.
But
Superman's Legacy. Yeah, James is very tight-lipped.
Kenya, I hope you're right.
Very tight-lipped
for real.
Oh, who's going to be the villain? But that's another thing that you absolutely love. James doesn't feel the need to overly tease stuff. He's just like, hey, we're doing auditions for Superman. All of them are going great. You won't know who any of these characters are. James is also the type of person who will not let rumors just run free. Because the moment you say something he thinks that something needs to be shut down, he's going to shut that shit down immediately. He's not. And then you have people who love to live off of rumors like Grace, who get mad at James because you'll say something and he'll correct you and he'll at you while correcting you. He's like, no, I want everybody to see that I'm telling you you're wrong. Like, no decision's been made on anything with Superman. All we know is it's a Superman in his 20s. But that's all you need to know so far before we get into everything. As Keenan said and Sam said with Batman Brave and the Bold. He did say Batman is Bruce Wayne. And that's it. He's not giving you another hint on anything. He said, but Batman is Bruce Wayne. No shit. We know that. What does that mean for Batman Brave and the Bold?
Right.
All we know is it's Batman, and we know Damian Wayne is in it, and we know nothing else.
Right.
But for Damian to be in it, this ain't no young Batman.
Right. Now, I was going to ask about Supergirl, and maybe this might be too controversial because some people claim they hate the Flash, some people claim they loved it.
If you hate the Flash and you hate that Supergirl, you're fucking insane. She was awesome as Supergirl.
Yeah. I liked the thing is, here's the thing about the Flash movie. Like I've been saying my favorite part was Michael Keaton, because I mean I grew up 89 Batman. I'm not gonna lie, like that was me fanboying. As far as the Flash movie goes, outside of that scene catching the babies, I was fine with the Flash movie. I did not mind it. I hated the CGI in the baby catching scene and all that. But outside of that, story wise, I did not mind. I did not mind the Flash. I did not mind it. Like my biggest grief was like I really would have loved to have seen what if they were going to do anything with Reverse Flash, and if they were going to do anything with the Gunverse with this. But the fact that they didn't, I was like, fine. Gunn's going to do his own thing, and that's completely cool. I thought they might connect it, and when they didn't, I'm like, okay, I'm not allowed to be disappointed because they didn't do exactly what I wanted them to do.
Yeah.
But Flash movie wise, like I said, outside of the let me put the baby in the microwave real quick scene, which was weird, I was completely fine with that movie. They did some fun stuff with it. They did some really troll-tastic stuff with it. And I did enjoy it. I always like a movie that does have heart. I felt like it did have that, especially with like the whole relationship with Barry and his mom and trying to get his dad out. Like the movie had heart, and I can appreciate that. Because a lot of these comic book movies coming out, I don't care. They could kill off every character in it, and I'd be like, sweet, I'm gonna go get a refill on popcorn. Like, that's fine. Like, but this movie actually had heart. I actually did care about it. And so I gave it approval just because of that. And on top of that, I'm not gonna lie, I did have nostalgia goggles on with Michael Keaton Batman in there. How could you not, right? And so yeah, I don't want anyone to think I did not like the Flash movie. I didn't like the opening of the Flash. The rest of it, I was cool with.
Still like it.
Right.
That's the key part. I could dislike parts of it.
And I'll be honest, I love Supergirl. I love her.
So that's where I was getting to, because
I love Supergirl.
Hold up, Sam. Let me just say one thing, and then we'll get into Supergirl. I heard people online complaining that Flash is the person who killed Flash's mother wasn't shown, because all of you niggas clearly must know who does that already in there. And when people were complaining about that, I said, wait a minute. So you're telling me that they weren't supposed to save that at the time when they thought they were going to get a sequel? Wouldn't that be a big part of the fucking sequel to talk about who killed his mom? Why would you talk about it in the first movie? Nigga, did we know how Peter Quill's parents died in the first movie? No, you didn't learn it to the second movie, everything that happened. Like, it literally was trying to set up something, because the first movie was just about acceptance. But people, I think it's the microwave society that people live in now, that everything needs to be exposed to you up front, because if it's not exposed to you up front, it's just pointless that they even show it in the film.
Yeah, like it should be a 5-hour movie with 4 different villains.
Nigga. And that's the problem. That's the problem. For some odd reason, you all think that all these superhero movies need to be 3 hours. Guess what? Endgame wasn't a good movie. I can say that because everybody knows it wasn't a fucking good movie. It was overly long and pointless. I could cut 40 minutes from that movie and make it a better cut of a film. But that's fine. When you feed fandom, for some odd reason, y'all want these super long ass movies. That's why y'all sit and watch that Justice League movie with Zack Snyder, because it's so fucking long. It's pointless though. But you gotta love some of the characters here. That's the key part here. Sasha's Supergirl is fucking amazing. If it was a way for her to continue as Supergirl, I would be all for it. But I think the problem currently is, if she continues as Supergirl, people are going to go back and thinking other people will come back again. And I think I don't think they want that to happen.
Yeah.
Of you thinking other people could come back.
Yeah, I think that's where I was getting at, is that well, me pivot real quick. So Andy has already said in open statement that yes, he intentionally did not show you who and what killed Barry's mom. We knew they weren't the dad.
Mm-hmm.
Barry was upstairs and he barely heard anything. And then all of a sudden he hears his mom's crying. Dad's already in there and sees the knife in the mom. She didn't stab herself.
Mm-hmm.
So it was obviously that we know what it was. And which is funny, because if we take that as the prime example, then that means that Barry didn't start this ripple effect. That the reverse actually did. And so he never was the person. It's kind of making him feel as though he has to take responsibility for something he caused, but he didn't. So there was a universe that Barry's mom didn't die, which is even more fascinating, but we'll never get that. Again, I'm just going down that route for anybody that has questions about it. But anyway, as far as Supergirl is concerned, I thought Sasha did so good. But my question was, if you bring Gal back, right, and make her Wonder Woman later, I think it would be very fascinating if they did the same exact thing with Sasha. I just don't know, because it's so soon. Because I think that, let me go back to this
Gal will come back as Wonder Woman in DCU, or would they give her a closeout third film as an Elseworld?
See, that was what I was gonna pivot to ask you guys, because I don't really know what makes the most sense. Honestly,
her not continuing as Wonder Woman makes the most sense.
Yeah, just killing it off.
She's too old.
She is back in Fast and Furious now.
I know.
Everybody's back in Fast and Furious. I'm just waiting for Paul Walker to show up next one.
Yeah, that's gonna happen next film.
What happened the last film? Whatever the last film.
Everybody's back in Fast and Furious. Fast and Furious has the ultimate universe. Let's just say that. Like, no one dies in Fast and Furious. But for Gal, when she released the news that there were negotiations happening of her coming back as Wonder Woman, I just automatically assumed it wasn't necessarily being the DCU, but it definitely was to give her the third movie that Aquaman is going to get.
So the reason why I asked is because, you got this Paradise Lost show that's about the Amazons, and it's live action series. And I'm kind of like, you're going to use that with Amazons. Do you interject Wonder Woman in any way there?
Well, she got to be. And she's a god, sir.
So that's what I'm saying. So it's like, who do you cast for that? Do you put Gal in there, or you recast? Because based on this slate in just chapter 1, you automatically going to have somebody to be Supergirl.
Play Supergirl, yep.
And you're going to automatically have somebody for
Wonder Woman. They brought them back for live action, I would be all for it. Sasha's an amazing Supergirl.
Yeah. The other thing
is Supergirl should be the angry one. It shouldn't be Superman.
Right. Exactly.
I get it now. Zack Snyder, Man of Steel is Supergirl's movie.
Wait.
That's what it is.
Wait, say that again?
Man of Steel is Supergirl. Supergirl's the angry one. It's never Superman. Superman's never angry. But Supergirl is. That's what makes Supergirl so appealing in The Flash, is because you get to see the embodiment of that anger.
It was funny because when I was, that's true. Because when I was watching The Flash, I leaned over to my buddy because I was like, Supergirl's not going to have any issue whatsoever with snapping Zod's neck. Like,
exactly.
She's actually this is my goal. Like, she has no issue whatsoever with snapping Zod's neck. She's like, actually, that's what I'm
then both of them fit into the Gods and Monsters format for Zach. I said Zach, Jesus. For James. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. Again, I'm more interested in Batman Brave and the Bold, because Batman's not a god. He's not a monster. But to be part of Gods and Monsters, you got to be there for a reason. Like,
right.
Well, what does that represent?
Like Waller, I can see she dealing with actual monsters and how they could do that. But with Brave and the Bold, I'm real curious.
And then you don't got and Peacemaker's not up there. Clearly, Peacemaker season 2 is being shot right now.
Right. So that's going to be a part of his chapter 2. And the other weird thing is they kind of put Superman and Lois as an Elseworld. And now that Superman Lois is continuing for a 4th season, that's so fascinating to me.
Hey, it got to be Elseworlds because it got the 4th season.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, I never went back to this poster because this poster is old. This is when James first made his announcement, but this has been here. We never thought that they were going to continue it, but now this makes so much more sense. They had always had in their head they're going to continue it.
See, but then this is not created by DC because you still have Blue Beetle in Universe Reset when we know from James's own mouth that's not the case with Blue Beetle. It's not the first film in the DCU, but he's definitely the first character in the DCU.
Right. Yeah, he did say that. So I don't know.
It's going to be interesting to see just where they go at with the DCU and between James and Peter and David. What's the plans for the DCU? It's clearly not going to be to pump out a movie, 2 to 3 movies every year. That's clearly not their goal. Plus, we don't necessarily know what people are coming over from, I would say, the Guardians movies. Because I think, look out, it's going to be some people from the Guardians movies that's going to come over with James. And
Look how you say some. You know all of them are going to come over.
I mean, Chris Pratt is already Booster Gold anyway.
Batista going to be bang. Batista going to be bang.
I think everybody think Chris Pratt's going to be Booster Gold.
Yeah, it'd be perfect.
And Batista's going to be Lobo. And I can see Lobo being a Superman.
Lobo, okay.
That would be interesting.
I was thinking Bane, but yeah. Okay.
That would be interesting. That would be actually.
And what's the girl? The girl who plays the one with the ant ears and
Mantis.
Mantis.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if they made her some Amazon in some way, shape, form, or fashion.
It could.
Maybe not Wonder Woman, but another Amazon.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is he hasn't touched on anything joint universe in those movies, have they? They're all solo, aren't they?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. They're all solo. They're connected, but they're not overly connected. So there's no meaning. We all know they're going to take time at the same place, and that Lanterns show is not even happening anymore.
I thought that was still going to Max.
No, sir. It's not part of. I don't think that's part of James's stuff, is it? Because they fired everybody from the HBO Max show.
No. Remember, this came after. So remember, the initial one that was going to be with HBO Max was one. They canceled that, and then they came up with this one that James said it was
Stewart.
like a.
It's going to be John Stewart and all of the Lanterns. And
Yeah. I can't remember how they told it, but I want to kind of play that announcement joint, but it's too late at night anyway. So, but yeah, man, we've gone through it all, man. Almost 2 hours in. Anybody got any closing thoughts about the future? I think we've wrestled with everything. We've gone about what we felt about the past.
Yeah.
Now, moving forward, where we're at.
I'll go. I'll be honest, because at first I know Sam was like, some people weren't excited when James Gunn was announced. Those some people were me. He was talking about me. He could have just said Keaton wasn't excited. He could have just said that, but he said the some people. And he was talking about me. And I will say this. No, I wasn't excited because my first thought was he was going to try and take every DC movie and throw Groot in it, and I was gonna hate it, right? But then I thought about it. I'm like, this dude made me like Peacemaker, someone who I never cared about before. I'm gonna shut up and give him a chance. That's what I said. I said, I'm gonna shut up, I'm gonna give him a chance. As soon as he said, oh, I'm gonna take a look at Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, I'm like, ooh, he done said the magic words. What's up, dog? What's up? And so honestly, I'm gonna shut up and let him do his thing. I'm gonna do the thing and watch it and enjoy it and keep reading my comic books, and I'm gonna let him cook. I'm gonna let him cook because, like I said, you make me care about Peacemaker starring John Cena. Fine, I'm gonna shut up and let you cook. Do your thing. And so yeah, I will say right now,
man.
I'm changing my vote over. I'm here for James Gunn. I support whatever he is trying to do.
So this was a healing session for Keaton, essentially.
Yeah, I had changed my mind before we had this meeting tonight, but I'm just stating it now because Sam made sure to say the some people line. So I needed to make sure that some people knew that some people had changed their minds.
Jorge, good.
Nah, I'm looking forward to this. I think this I think what I'm excited for, like when you bring up that that little slate that kind of shows everything in like chapter 1, I don't know so much of that crap. And I think that's what allures me more than anything. Like I know other than like Superman, you know, and the Batman movie and like I don't know who the authorities are. I really never gave Swamp Thing a go when that was out.
What? Jorge, you got to watch that show.
I'm about to say that show.
Please go back and watch it.
Banging.
I know we tried watching a few times. I haven't gotten through it, man. My backlog is stupid right now. But you know, like Waller, have no idea. Like and I think that's what makes this really like. James does a great job at making you care about characters that you didn't care about beforehand. Like freaking Guardians of the Galaxy 3, we were tearing up watching a freaking raccoon getting operated on. Like, and when you think about that, you're like, it's just a raccoon. Like, why am I this emotionally invested? But that's what he does. Like the whole Guardians of the Galaxy, I mean, ragtag bunch of people and everyone loved them, you know? And now I'm looking at like all these slates that are coming out and I'm like, I don't know any of these people, but if it's going to get me hooked like it did like Guardians, I can vibe with all of this. And I think, Lucas, you just said it. I think it was you that said it first. There's no team up movie at all in chapter 1. And I love that. Like, I absolutely like I truly feel that they're building foundations. And then they can, you know, like, you know what works. You can scoot out once or twice to see kind of like what maybe take a little risk here and there. But I'm excited for this. I think it's going to be dope. I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of like the Elseworld. So like the Batman movie with Patterson, you know, the Joker movie that's going to be a musical. Like I'm very intrigued with those projects because
that's going to be crazy. Yeah.
It's so
it's going to be bonkers. That's going to be wild. Yeah.
And I do think, you know, like the Superman and Lois thing, like staying on that, I really like that show and I like how that Superman is. I like that whole world. And I think it would be weird to have a DCU without a Superman, even if it's not like the main Superman, but just having a show just in the background, just so people can like kind of check off that box. But overall, no, I'm definitely hyped for this. It's giving me hope. And it's giving me, you know, it's not going to be like, I'm hoping it's not going to be rinse and repeat for all of these. Like, I think it's all going to be very different. And like, you know, the only thing I know, like Swamp Thing, obviously that's like more horror aspect of it, which I'm like, that's dope. Like, I don't want these clean cookie cutter, like superhero movies. Like, give me that gory, you know, like horror type elements. Like, I'm all for that. So now overall, I'm 2 thumbs up on this.
Quick question, Sam. The picture that you've been showing of all the films coming up, was Constantine 2 up there anywhere? Nope. No? Okay.
Nope, was not.
And I don't know if they're still doing it. If they are doing it, it probably will be an Elseworlds.
I think they're still doing it. I think they're still doing.
I mean, well, now there's a John Wick 5 coming out, so there's no telling anymore.
Wait, but they. No, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
okay.
But the only thing I'm looking forward to is Superman. I'm looking for a hopeful Superman movie because
that's his superpower. A lot of people are like, oh, Superman. Yeah. Like I look at Superman's superpower is that he will make light in the dark and he just gets it done every single time. That's Superman's real superpower. Like the heat vision, all of that. It's plenty of characters with his power set. Yeah. Superman's superpower is, like you said,
what we're missing
hope aspect, which is what we've been missing for
not just for DC films. I think for all in the comic book genre films altogether, you're missing a character that gives you full hope. Because I think Sony has besides animated with Spider-Verse films, because man, Miles is the best character going right now. And he does it in spades. But from the live action standpoint, we have not had a character who gives you hope. Even Peter Parker doesn't give you hope. He gives you searching, but not necessarily hope.
Agreed,
so if
Kenya.
you can get a Superman film that can give you hope, I think that's going to go a long way to correcting the right. But I don't think it's just going to correct what's going on with DC. If a Superman movie is nailed properly, I think it will correct multiple different universes of superhero films, because I think it could give Marvel the hope that you can go and pick a character that's more wholesome and do a film on and build upon him. I think it would give Sony the credit to say, hey, maybe we can then take Miles live action and give you this hopeful character and it be something different. I think that's the key part. The boys push superhero shit to a dark place because it's great entertainment and it's successful entertainment. But we got to realize that these characters that people grew up with and they love, they didn't grow up and love them because they were dark. Batman's a darker character, but he still don't kill people. Like you're looking for hope. And if you can get hope from the DC stuff, that I think will bleed to give hope until the Marvel stuff, and maybe what's the girl in Black Panther's name? Lady Black Panther.
Shuri.
That one. Maybe she would stop being mean and give hope to people. Maybe then you could transition these characters, because I think that's going to be the key part for all of these universes moving forward, is the hope aspect that got taken away ever since Tony snapped his fingers in Endgame. That took away a lot of hope for kids, and it took away the enjoyment that you could take kids to these superhero films. Because now I can't name the last superhero film that as a parent you will feel comfortable taking your kids to see that's not animated. So Spider-Verse is out of it. Live action, I don't know the last one that you would feel secure to taking your kids to see. And that's important in this genre, because that's the only way it can survive. And if James, the way he's pinpointing, the way he talks about Superman legacy is to get back to that point, that would be a pivot that most people don't see coming, because that's not a pivot that you normally can embrace. And the pivot of honest and niceness is just not going around at these times. And short. I just saw a Little Mermaid movie that was 2 hours and 40 minutes long. Guess what?
Dang, it's that long? I ain't even seen it yet.
Yes, it is.
Not all movies have to be that damn long to give you a story that makes sense.
What's Little Mermaid Lord of the Rings length? What is this? What? What?
That 2 hour threshold is highly important. And as long as you
the songs that long.
Due diligence, she be twerking and all. As long as you do your due diligence, and you can make a 2 hour movie really good and really entertaining. And you
Little Mermaid is 2 hours and 40 minutes long. Are you?
Yeah.
You don't have to have bloated storylines. I don't need
fish
an
movie.
Avatar scene like the Man of Steel in this one. So I'm also hoping for that maybe we can get back to the 2 hour long movie, because I think that's highly important. A cohesive 2 hour long movie. Because
no wonder they ain't making no money. Ain't nobody gonna take their kids to see that movie. They're gonna pee on themselves 3 times. What in the world?
And that's why the movie is failing in the box office.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Like again, we need to get back to that point of just hope and better watching experience for everybody.
Dang, my wife went to see that movie. I thought she had gone out to eat. I didn't realize it was that long. I just assumed she went drinking with her friends afterwards. Wow.
Yeah, I think one thing that I will agree with Lucas on is that aspect of hope. One of the things in one of my favorite superhero movies last year, which was The Batman, is this scene right here. Never seen anything like it for Batman. And it transitioned from him taking them out of the darkness, and literally we're seeing him in the light. Which you never really do. We never get to see Batman in the light. And it's kind of like the way they ended that movie. It was like he's trying to bring people out of the darkness into a place of hope. So seeing that happen and people resonating with it, I've heard people resonate with it. There's a reason why they like this scene, because it's not something that they commonly see like this in real life or in a superhero movie, especially a superhero movie in present day time. So I think that there's something to that to see if they can find something to that nature with a Superman. And the thing about that is once this Superman is brought into it, they can put him anywhere. They can put that same as that Superman on television. They can, instead of like, we've gone and seen Titans. Some people really love Titans. I love the first season of Titans. One thing that I hated about it was that I never saw Batman there. So it felt like it was always going to be disconnected. It was always like, you can't have these major characters or IPs, but you can have their subplot characters, or they can't be on at the same exact time. This is unprecedented for me. So this is the reason why I'm so excited, is that I could have a Batman Brave and the Bold, and then on the Green Lantern show, Batman may show up, and it's going to be the same exact actor. That concept has never happened. That's unprecedented. So for them to go this level of in depth with it, I am highly excited to see what they can do. Do I appreciate and value some of the things that the DCEU did give me and I'll never forget? Absolutely. But I think that the whole point, and Lucas said it, is that this is a very pivotal time for us as comic book fans in general. Like, some people that never read a comic book in their life are watching these stories unfold for their kids, right?
Oh, yeah, it's cool to be a nerd now. That's why nerds have become bullies.
Right. So it's kind of like, this is a great time. So it's like, I don't think that there's pause for concern or worry, because what's the worst can happen? We're going to have something really unique and different that you're going to get attached to. There may be duds along the way, but I think that there is light. There is a possibility for hope with this. And I didn't mean to be this sappy with it. But yeah, I think
keep cooking.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with being sappy about it. That's what we need nowadays.
Keep cooking.
The world is negative enough. You know what we don't need? More negativity in the world.
More submarine memes.
Exactly. You need positiveness all of a sudden. And it shifted, because at one point the world was extremely nice and they embraced these darker tones. I mean, the DCU came to fruition because people thought that Marvel movies were too nice.
Yep.
We understand it. And that's why people love them. They love them for that reason, because they say it brought realism to it. But it's like, yeah, I understand that aspect of bringing realism to things, but not through Superman. Like, you got to pick the characters to do that too. Right. And you pick the wrong character to do it with.
Right.
So again, hopefully here we get something where it's closer to it, honestly. And James, again, he's left so much hope for shit. James talked about a Marvel and DC crossover.
Yeah,
you know how many people got excited about that when he said, "Oh yeah, I can see us doing something of that nature. We just have to get established first." Those are the ways you bring hope to people that other things could possibly happen.
Yeah, because
like I can see down the line James going back to Marvel and directing something else. I can also see down the line Kevin producing something for DC.
Right.
Because they're going to try to leave these doors open and say, hey, if we can make a deal with Sony to do something, we can make a deal with Warner Brothers to do something. Maybe we do want a crossover. Maybe you want something of this nature just to heighten everything up, to make more event picks. Because these just run-of-the-mill picks over and over again. I don't want to see Chung-Li again, Shang-Chi, or whatever the fuck his name is. No one wants to see his sequel. But that's the problem.
Chun-Li is a Street Fighter character. You know this. Come on, man.
Lucas. I've never known the difference between the two. They're both Asian and they fight. That's all I knew.
Anywho, on that note, I think he was going somewhere good when he was talking about the possibility.
But I'm talking about just leaving the possibility open for more camaraderie between this stuff, because I don't need people to think that you know what, you got to pick between Marvel and DC and Sony's whatever their Spider-Man universe, where you can't like them all.
Right.
You can like them all, and you can like them all for different reasons here. Right. There's nothing wrong with getting R-rated stuff from time to time. There's nothing wrong with getting PG-rated stuff from time to time. I can't wait till someone makes a G-rated superhero film. Like that's something that I would be amazed that if you can pull that off properly. But this is stuff that needs to happen. Yeah, exactly. Like a live action Incredibles would be amazing. Right. And place it in Marvel's universe. What's wrong with it? Who would care? It's just something to entice people. Something different. Like that's all you want at this point, is something different. And hope that other studios realize sticking with the format that worked for you for 22 movies. Maybe it's time to move on from that. Maybe it's time to say, hey, we're going to put more respect behind each and every single product. Bob already said that's his goal. So hopefully that's their goal moving forward, is to do that, to watch what Sony is doing. Hopefully the Spider-Verse stuff breaches off to something amazing that can happen next. Maybe James corrects DC. Maybe y'all can etch out an extra 3 years out of this, because by 2032 or something of that nature, all this shit will be gone. So enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, I personally would love. I mean, I think that them introducing the concept that they're saying that Elseworlds movies and series to exist brings me something like this, bro. Like if they make this into a live action film, people will lose it, and it doesn't even have to be a follow up sequel. It just be one film. So the concept behind introducing Elseworlds is something that I think even if probably Marvel's like, man, I wish we could have done that first, because that allows you to explore any scope of characters, any scope of directors and mediums. And I mean, you could get like a Batman Beyond eventually. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that there's ways that they can make this work with bringing what we already love and like, and then also continuing in a fluid way. Because I even doubted whether or not the Joker was going to work. I was like, how is this supposed to work? Lucas convinced me. Lucas was like, it's going to be a side universe. I was like, how are they supposed to continue?
Drama that made $1 billion.
Right.
You know what don't happen? Dramatic films making $1 billion don't happen.
Crazy.
Comic book movies winning Oscars.
Right.
Exactly.
It did win Oscar. That's right.
Right. You know,
it won Best Actor. Like it's as somebody put in the chat, Marvel wants DC to succeed as much as DC needs Marvel to succeed. They need each other to succeed because they can't survive alone.
Yeah.
Steel sharpens steel. People say that for a reason. You need competition. If you don't have competition, what do you gauge your success against?
Yeah. Ask Madden.
Exactly. Like ask any product that's been uber successful. Ask Call of Duty. Like,
that's right, it did win. I forgot about
any project that's been successful, you need another something to push you. You need ideas. Michael Jackson and Prince said it about each other all the time. When Mike used to say, I used to watch what Prince was doing, it made me want to do better. I think that's what Marvel was missing. That's what started Marvel's drop off, is that they looked over at DC and said, oh, you guys are putting out shit. If you putting out shit, we might as well just go by what we're going to do. And then they started putting out shit. And it's like, oh, okay, but if we're both putting out good projects, maybe I'll take this idea and be like, man, I can't believe they did that with Superman. Hey, how about we do that with Captain America? Hey, man, I can't believe they did that with Captain America. Hey, maybe we could do this with Green Lantern. Hey, can't believe they did this with Green Lantern. Maybe we could do this with the Fantastic Four. It all bleeds over to each other. And not saying they're stealing ideas, but what they're doing is taking concepts and saying, man, I can't believe you did this. It makes me want to do better.
Yeah.
Hey, shout out to Cora for real.
Meanwhile,
I
the boys out
Static
here
Shock
just
movie
killing
for
everybody.
real.
Meanwhile, the boys out here killing everybody.
Bro, I'm not all right.
That's who everybody's playing catch up to right now is the boys.
See, I'm not all right. So yeah, we're not gonna get in. We're not gonna get into.
And as Ronan said,
I literally just finished rewatching that for the podcast. Like
as
Ronan
said, everybody just tune in in a couple of weeks, because as long as everything goes down the path that it looks like it's going down with the actors, it's shaping up for Comic-Con to be something big. Because I think Warner Brothers or Peter and James, without Marvel being there, and it's not because like Marvel just backed out for no reason. Marvel announced their projects. I don't think they have anything else to announce. But with an opening the way that they have, if everything works in their favor and there's no strike going on, I think he's going to go to show he's going to definitely show the Superman cast. I think he's going to announce whoever's in Batman. I think he's going to announce a lot of shit to let you know these other people playing these characters. This is how we're going to go forward with stuff.
I'm hyped for it.
And I think that's something that you really need to see, because I think that's going to push Marvel the following year to come back and be like, okay, We gotta show up DC a little bit.
We gotta do better.
And it's friendly
in every category,
friendly
in
banter
every way.
back and forth with them, and that's gonna be great.
Yes, X-Men. Stop.
That's
effing
what they're gonna
around
do. It's not even an option.
X-Men. Stop messing
Well,
around.
I mean,
Stop
but you know,
being
X-Men
goofy
is years upon
and
years
give me
away.
my X-Men. Oh, I'm sorry.
They still ain't gave you Fantastic Four yet, and we
I
know
don't
that
care.
project is
I don't
up
care
next.
about them. I want X-Men. I don't care about that family.
Dang.
But they're
I
about to
don't
go
care
through the
about
same
them.
issue that
Best
DC
thing
went
about
through.
Fantastic Four
Because
is Dr.
I
Doom.
think they're-
Give me
I
him
think-
and then give me my X-Men. I don't care about
I think Marvel's X-Men is going to go through a slight big of a pushback because of Deadpool. Because Deadpool is
give me my X-Men,
Deadpool is bringing back everybody.
Yeah.
That's all you keep on hearing. They're trying to make one. No one asked for a Deadpool multiverse movie, but they're going to give you one. And because they're going to give you one, it's going to push shit back. And I think that's going to... Anybody asking for Ben Affleck to come back as Daredevil? No. No one asked for that to happen. No one. Who's going to give it to you? Marvel, because they don't know no better. Like, it's...
That's gonna
no
be,
one asked for any... No one asked for Halle Berry to come back.
be a
They ain't
hefty
asked
Daredevil.
They ain't asking for Patrick Stewart to come back. They ain't asking for Hugh Jackman to come back. They ain't asking for whoever plays Scott Summers to come back. The white lady who plays
James
Jean Grey.
Marsden.
They're not asking for Jane McAvoy to come back. Michael Batson. Am I saying this right now? Fassbender. Whatever the fuck his name.
Lucas, you remember
No one's
names
asking
worse
for these
than
people.
moms, man. Like, bro,
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
you gotta.
If I said the way I remember people, we would not have a channel anymore.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to say their names as much as humanly possible. Oh, everybody has a nickname. I could point them out. I'm just not allowed to say it anymore in public.
Yeah, please.
But I think that's going to be a pushback for them, which I think is fine. I don't think Marvel needs to rush and do the X-Men because if you rush and do the X-Men, I think it takes away years of what could happen afterwards. Yeah. You introduce the X-Men, you fucked. At that point, you have nothing left.
Yeah,
because you can't get Spider-Man, and it looks like Sony ain't giving that up no time soon.
Well, what about them finally getting the rights to the Hulk? Now they'd be able to put
Who said they did?
Hulk.
Who said they had the rights to the Hulk?
The trades.
No, they didn't. The trade said they had rights to the Incredible Hulk film. They purposely put it that way for a reason. Go back and read them. Every trade says they have gained rights to the Incredible Hulk film. Pay attention to that. That's highly important when they say film.
Lucas, you got to give us some hope, man. This negativity got to stop.
Well, no, he's been giving us hope. He's giving hope for
DC's thing.
He's been giving hope for DC.
I gave hope for Marvel too, on what Marvel can do going forward. Look, it's just they just gotta, again, all this connected shit gotta end. No one cares. No one any longer cares. You gotta stop needing the need for everything to be connected. Solo is the way to go. That Werewolf by Midnight shit is amazing.
It was.
Stick with that.
Yeah.
This Secret Invasion shit should be a sign that you don't need to do this anymore.
Yeah, Secret Invasion is not good.
Yeah, like, come on, man. Like, you're the MCU. And yet still, I don't hear anybody arguing that Secret Invasion is absolutely nothing like the comic books. But I used to hear that all the time about DC, and I'm like, wait a minute. But is this a Secret Invasion y'all used to read in the comics? They say, oh, no, it's nothing like the comics. But, you know, it's Marvel. That's
what we call bias. And I've been calling folks out for that the last decade and a half. But
Secret
Invasion's I ain't even going to talk about that.
I don't even think Samuel Jackson wanted to do it. I think they put it in front of him, and Sam said, okay. I'll do it.
We done been talking almost as long as the Little Mermaid movie, which I'm still messed up about.
I'll end it here.
I ain't never going to watch it now.
When you get actors who are attached to MCU telling other people it is not a good idea to sign contracts to be in an extended universe, that should tell you it's a problem. You got big people in the MCU telling actors now, don't sign those contracts.
Don't do it, Bloodbath.
And Blade is coming out in 2034 because that's how long it's going to take them to try to do this movie right. Because, I mean, hey, here's the fucked up part. Guess who did a perfect Blade movie? Warner Brothers. Like, how you let Warner Brothers do a better movie than you're going to possibly do as Blade?
He out of pocket, but he right.
But wasn't that technically the first Marvel movie?
Yes, it was, and it was produced everything by Warner Brothers. It's a Warner Brothers movie. Warner Brothers, when they had right, and they gladly gave Marvel the rights back to Blade, and Mahershala is about to stab somebody as long as it's taking them to develop this movie. Like I've never seen Marvel change directors this many times for a project. Like it shows that they don't know where to go anymore. But people thought Kevin had this magical plan that was going to work out, and now you're seeing, oh, yeah, when movies fail, those plans go away real fast.
Yep.
Where the fuck is the Celestial in Earth that's sticking out from Earth? Why is no one talking about this thing anymore? Why is no one talking about this? No one's talking about it. I ain't hear mentioning Black Panther, and you had someone who's over the sea, and this nigga didn't say, by the way, in a part of the ocean, there's this big ass thing out here. We need to know why it's here. No one is bringing this up here, yo. No,
did half of them disappear?
An invasion, nigga, a big giant alien hanging out of our Earth. That's part of your secret invasion. What the fuck is this? No one is questioning this big ass thing sticking out of Earth. Come on, man. You know why they're not questioning it? Eternals lost $200 million, and Marvel was saying, "Hey, by the way, you're not even gonna question that big thing hanging out of Earth anymore. Let's act like it doesn't exist." What, did someone throw a cloth over it and it's no longer there? Like, I gotta explain this shit eventually. Explain it eventually. Make it make sense. And don't tell me no bullshit about, oh, we just ain't get to that part again. Nigga, it's a big ass alien hanging out of Earth. That should always be something to talk about. I'm just saying. I'm just asking logical questions. That's it. I don't ask logical questions too often, but that was just one of them I wondered, because it's a big ass celestial hanging out of Earth that's frozen and no one talks about it anymore. Like it did, like that shit happened, and then Blade talked to a sword, and then magically now Blade doesn't have words to speak anymore. Like, come, nigga, really? So you telling me Thor couldn't see that from space? The Guardians didn't. The Guardians of the Galaxy, you can't see that? Like, come on, man.
That was on the other side. They were on the other side.
Yeah, man, that's different, bro. They were over on the moon. They were east side of the moon. See, you had to be paying attention.
Dark side of the moon.
I had my
compass.
Dark
side of the moon.
I had my compass in the theater, and like you could, yeah, man. I'll explain it in another video.
He's like, what had happened was,
dude, look, that should have been the first question. Like, hey, by the way, we got this big ass thing hanging out the Earth. Where the fuck did this come from?
No, see, man, if you look, it's cloudy. So from the spaceship, they can't see that because it's the clouds.
Instead, folks get trapped in the quantum mania.
Man, you ain't getting the
water
real
froze. It was climate change. It's just, we don't talk about Bruno anymore, okay?
There you go. we don't talk about Wanda turning evil. We don't talk about the little Latin girl in an American jacket. Like, I understand when movies don't gross what you think it should, that you want to move on from them. But when you have a connected universe, you don't have that option to move on from them anymore. You're going to have to explain shit here. Where the fuck were the rest of the Avengers when Wanda was going fucking psycho on everybody? Like, where were they at?
Yep.
No one decided to help. Yep. No one.
Everyone's entitled to PTO.
When Hawk is training She-Hulk on an island.
That PTO. No.
Come on, son.
PTO, mental health day.
Come on,
son.
Wait,
hold on. Let's think about this. Who was actually left after Doctor Strange? Who did they have to come to help?
Peter fucking Parker.
No, they don't own them. They don't own them. And sure, in fact, wouldn't go out of Wakanda.
Here you go. After all of that happened, we then got a montage of Thor working out not to be Fat Thor anymore. And Thor said, you know what, but fuck Earth. Like, I'm not going there to find out what their
Bro,
problems are.
don't forget they undid all of his character development from the entire MCU going into that movie.
Bruh,
Like, it makes no sense. And then you got to go through the countless shows we've had since this shit has happened. No one see, unless everyone has all of a sudden became Daredevil and they have no vision. Why is no one able to see this shit? Like, it makes no sense.
I mean, they did kill Vision, but whatever. But then there's a new Vision that's out there somewhere that they never really touched.
If this Marvel's movie does not bring up, it's a big ass celestial on Earth, and Captain Marvel's job is to do what? Patrol space. Bitch, you should see this big ass celestial sticking out the Earth. If that does not happen, I'm gonna have a problem because I got questions at this point. Nigga, I understand again, Eternals lost a lot of money, but we cannot act like it's not a big ass thing sticking out of Earth.
No one noticed. Okay? No one noticed.
I know it's some crazy shit going on in the planet, but I'm just assuming that's something somebody would notice.
Bro, they found Thor's hammer in like a podunk town somewhere, right? But this never saw it. Never saw it.
Hey, out of the blue.
That's crazy.
And Thor can transfer his powers to people.
Bro, that's what I was literally about to say. I can
that's
never.
Crazy.
When I have
just imagine if he could have did that during Endgame. Fuck in Infinity War if he was able to give his powers to other people. We wouldn't have a problem anymore.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. Look, I'm tired, but we're just gonna say I just wish the best for all of these universes and you all who love these comic book films, that it gives you the pleasure that you couldn't get as children because you were nerds. So hopefully now you get these movies and it gives you that pleasure. As Keaton said, nerds have become bullies.
I was about to say, we don't deserve anything now. Yeah. Like the way we've been acting,
nerds have become bullies.
Anything. It's like when my toddler is acting up and I put him in timeout. Nerds don't deserve nothing. Whatever we get, it's God-given. We don't deserve anything now. The way we've been acting. We don't deserve
comic books, between y'all anime stuff that's going on. People used to make fun of you all for this stuff. Embrace that they're making projects for you all now. Granted, none of you are going to watch One Piece. I know you're not going to watch One Piece. But they're making a project for you to watch. Enjoy it. It's going to happen. Like, that's all I hope for. In the end, I hope every comic book fan enjoys all of these comic book movies that come out, even the bad ones. Because 10 years from now, you're going to be like, man, I can't believe I didn't go see Morbius in theaters or Craven or Eternals or
I can put my hand
Doctor
up for
Strange.
A second. Hold on one second. One second. Did you just name an anime?
He did. He does watch.
Yeah, and it was the worst one. It's crazy.
No, not even just that.
And he called it anime.
He called it by its correct name, and he actually identified an anime I've never talked to him about. I am impressed
because Netflix is making a show about it. It's on Tudum.
I'm impressed,
bro.
This is a JVS first, you guys. Lucas, I could cry right now and just turn this all off.
Lucas is right though. Lucas is completely right. Nerds don't deserve anything. Look in the comments over here. There's one person in the comments that's been just saying mean stuff about me. They said I needed therapy because of my opinion of a comic book movie. They have been having aneurysms.
Corey Gray, who's been around for a long time with us on JVS. We greatly appreciate it, but poor Zack Snyder, he doesn't deserve this. He doesn't deserve anything. He's the worst director in Hollywood.
He's not the worst director in Hollywood.
He's the worst. Yul Bowl, and then it's Zack Snyder. That's how it goes. It's the worst thing Hollywood's ever produced. Simple. Like, I asked someone the other day, could you name a project that Zack Snyder did that's good, that he wrote? No, you can't. You can't. He's a music video director. That's what he is.
Okay, now we're done. We're gonna leave.
We're gonna leave before we go longer than the Little Mermaid movie. I am so bothered by that. I really thought my wife was out drinking. I thought that was a 90-minute movie.
out the top of the moon. I can see the skyline, 50 mile radius on the